The notice of hybrid in-person and electronic meeting reads, the Planning Commission of Park City, Utah will hold its regular meeting with an anchor location for public participation at the Marsac Municipal Building, City Council Chambers, 445 Marsac Avenue, Park City, Utah, 84060 on Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. Planning Commission members may participate in person or connect electronically by Zoom or phone. Members of the public may attend in person or participate electronically. Public comments will also be accepted virtually. To comment virtually, use e-comment or raise your hand on Zoom through www.parkcity.org/public meetings. Written comments submitted before or during the meeting will be entered into the public record but will not be read aloud. For more information on attending virtually and to listen live, please go to www.parkcity.org. Okay, so we have, we're missing one commissioner, which is Commissioner Susser. She may or may not be joining us. She had indicated to me earlier, so, but she is not present at the time. And other than that, looks like we have 4 commissioners in person. I'm attending virtually because I'm not feeling well and I did not want to risk getting anyone else sick. So I am wondering, since I am not feeling well, I guess we could do this. Well, I'll talk about it in a minute. So I'll just go ahead and follow through on the agenda. We have minutes of approval. So we've got minutes from May 25th. Do the commissioners have any questions or not questions, any comments or corrections to make to the minutes? If not, can I get a motion?
Chair Phillips, I move that we approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from May 25th, 2022.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Kenworthy and a second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Next, we have staff and board communications and disclosures. I'll just go ahead and, start. As I said, I'm not feeling well, so forgive me for I may not be at my best, but I do feel like I can get through the meeting. We don't have the vice chair with us at the moment, and with me feeling ill, I'm wondering if we should, if we need to appoint a temp vice chair, just in case I get ill and need to leave. I don't anticipate it, but it also is a possibility. Mark, do you have any suggestions?
Mark Harrington, Senior City Attorney. It doesn't hurt to be prepared, so it makes sense to do that if you think you're touch and go. So I might as well do that.
Okay,
Chair Phillips, I'll make a motion that Commissioner Hall takes over in your absence.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Kenworthy and a second by Commissioner Van Dyne. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No quick.
All right. I will do my best, Commissioner Hall, because I know you were not prepared. So, but I also know that you would be able to handle it as well. So, okay. So I'll turn to staff now. If there's anything from staff.
We have Heinrich Dieters with Trails and Open Space, who has a staff communication update.
Okay, before we do that, let me just turn to the commissioners and see if there are any disclosures that need to be made tonight.
The meeting is intended to last until 9:30 based on the agenda.
Yeah, I believe so. I had done some math, and I'm hoping we can get done a little earlier would be my goal. But
Okay.
we will do our best to stick to the 9:30.
Okay, that might interfere with the recent appointment, should you need to leave, but I would like to end by 9:30. I know
Okay.
like the last two regular meetings, we blew through past that, but I'd really like to start ending at a reasonable time.
Okay. Noted.
I have a couple of disclosures. Number one, item 7F. Commissioner Souser sent a late email, and I was a part of it, that she would want read into the record in case she's not available here tonight. So I'll be doing that if she's not available. And as I mentioned last week, I had a meeting with Deer Valley in the last 2 weeks, and the application the application was brought up. Nothing that it was a totally unrelated meeting that I had at my campground, and that Garrett Lang, Hannah Tyler, Steve Graff from Deer Valley attended, and the application came up. I had no idea that the application was going to be on the agenda, and certainly not this week. But the information that was shared will not affect my decision-making tonight, and I don't feel the need to recuse myself.
Okay.
And that was regarding item 7B.
Yes. Yes.
And to be clear, you did not discuss this. It was an unrelated meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
They did mention that this was coming up and that this was going to be on the agenda in the future, and that no, there were no maps, no details, none of that kind of stuff.
Okay. Just
It was in the
wanted to
back.
be clear. Thank you. Okay. Anything else, commissioners?
Do we have to open up the public communication?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I did skip that, didn't I? As I said, I'm not going to be at my best tonight, but I'm going to try my best. Why don't we take a step back and do that real quick? If there's any items that are not on if there's anyone wishing to speak on an item that is not on the agenda tonight, you could step up to the podium or raise your hand in Zoom. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone on Zoom, and assuming there's no one in person. So now we can move forward and turn it over to Heinrich for his Rail Trail Master Planning update. Welcome, Heinrich.
Thank you, Chair Phillips. With me this evening, Maria Villas from Fair and Piers, who's been the consultant on this project. And then I believe everybody knows Charlie Sturgis. Charlie has been an integral part of a lot of the public outreach associated with this rail trail planning. So wanted to provide a quick update to Planning Commission. I don't get to present to you guys very often, so not really seeking any action, just really input. We thought that this was another opportunity that we can just present this in a public forum. The intent of this is to make this presentation this evening. If Planning Commission has any input, love to get that back. We've also put the draft recommendations on our Park City Engage page for the rail trail that has a comment section. So another opportunity for the public to provide comment through that. We additionally will meet with the Walk Advisory Committee over the next couple of weeks and run through a few of these. And then the intent is to take this to City Council later this summer for adoption of this plan. So to just give you a little bit of background. Additionally, in your staff report, I wanted to go over how we got here a little bit. So while this Planning Commission has expressed a lot of interest in the active transportation plans, and I know Park City Forward has been before you, and I think it is this evening actually a bit tonight. This one took a little bit different route to a public process, and that being, the rail trail, some know, some don't know, is actually operated and owned by state parks. So they have operated that since the early 90s. And in doing so, over the years, we've received some input from residents associated with the level of service, not only with the amenities and the maintenance, but some sort of the actual pavement structure and repair to certain aspects. So staff and council over the last numerous years received a lot of that comment, which culminated in myself taking a report to City Council on April 15th, I think it was 2021, requesting if we can enter into or explore an agreement with Utah State Parks where we could actually take over management and maintenance of about 3 miles. So from in town all the way to 248 of the actual rail trail. So this wouldn't be something that we would take over ownership. We would just take over maintenance, provide a higher level of maintenance, and then management associated with that. I can also tell you that through this process, Summit County is also exploring additional aspects with Utah State Parks for the remainder of the rail trail. So it's been actually a really good project to dovetail not only our efforts, but also some of the efforts with Summit County planning and the envision of this rail trail corridor, which many of the planning commissioners are aware starts in Park City, but goes all the way to Echo. So provide a little bit of aspect associated with this. And then from a planning perspective, the idea is that while we might get to the end of this planning exercise on this specific project, it'll be incorporated into a lot of our, whether it's active transportation planning or Park City Forward, because the rail trail really is a spine associated with our, whether it's alternative transportation or recreation here in our community. So I wanted to touch base on that. Maria?
So Heinrich and I are going to be ping-ponging back and forth a bit, so kind of bear with us here. So just to kind of orient you on what we're talking about today, we're going to go over what this plan was intended to achieve. We're going to walk you through the activities that we undertook to get public outreach and some of the feedback we got from people. We're going to walk through how this is connected to the goals that were developed from the plan, and then we're going to go through the draft recommendations and what we feel are the next steps here.
Great. Current state of the rail trail, this kind of echoes back to what we heard. We're seeing about 200 users per hour. Now, these are at our peak times on the rail trail, and these are counters that are closer to like the White Pine area, Bonanza, where we see a lot of use. So we're seeing increased use of the rail trail as well as new modes. So e-bikes have been steadily growing associated with this. Matter of fact, it's a large component of our alternative transportation planning in Park City. But along with the differing modes, whether it be hikers, kids, families, e-bikers, or bikers, the structure of the rail trail at the moment is about 9 to 10 feet wide of pavement. And so when you're incorporating those numbers and differing uses, as well as dogs, which was a popular theme of some of our outreach, it led us to basically the next steps associated with our planning. Sorry, I'm flipping pages, et cetera, and stuff. So again, the intent of this plan is a change in stewardship. So the city would actually take over management, make capital improvements and maintenance aspects. Some of that maintenance we actually already did last fall. We did some sealing of the rail trail, and we took care of a lot of those willow bumps. And if you've been out there, I'm looking for some of the planning commissioners to shake their head, which I think has made a lot of difference. So we've been doing those aspects already, but there's a lot to go. And the purpose of this plan was very much to be community driven. And Maria will go over a lot of that right now.
Okay, so as Heinrich said, we really wanted feedback from the public to drive what we were proposing as part of this plan. We did back it up with some technical data and observations as well, but so you can get a sense of the kind of work we did to get that feedback. So we started with an intercept survey on the trail in a few different points on an October weekend. It was gorgeous, beautiful weather, captured lots of people, got lots of feedback about where they came from, what were they using the trail for, what they liked or didn't like. Got a lot of good feedback that day. We had the project website through Engage Park City going throughout the time period. And we kept that updated with FAQ, responses to FAQ as those kind of rolled in. We had the stakeholder walking group, and I want to acknowledge actually Charlie here was very helpful too, helping us. Yes, you can walk. He's a walker. In addition to folks from the walk group that were part of our stakeholder committee as well. So lots of very dedicated people helping out here. So we had a walking tour with our stakeholder committee in November, kind of kick it off, talk about the conditions, prep for another open house that we held the week before Thanksgiving last year. And then we came back to our stakeholders in April with this draft set of recommendations, and to the public in April of this year. We had about 50 to 60 people at both of the open houses. I got a lot of feedback and actually made some changes to the recommendations based on the feedback that we received. We also did a survey in January and February of this year. We got about 1,000 responses to that, but we really wanted to get that information so we could kind of build the recommendations off of what we heard from the public. So things that were sort of common themes are listed here that we've heard throughout this process. So safety and enforcement, really this is primarily applying to bikes and dogs. Dogs, wanting people wanting them to be on leash where they're supposed to be on leash. And a lot of sentiment about the bikes, especially e-bikes. It was kind of funny. People that were on bikes were like, oh, the pedestrians, they're so accommodating, they're so friendly. And the people that were walking were like, oh my God, the bikes are scaring me half to death. So, really different perception of what was going on with that relationship. People felt like signage and wayfinding would also be helpful. There's already obviously a lot of wayfinding there, but just some small tweaks to additional destinations, maybe a little bit more additional information. We can talk about that in a bit. Seating was something that came up, just a few more opportunities for people to sit down, take a break, rest, better access to destinations, just more connections along the trail, both to, business districts and also things like future trails in Wasatch County, Clark Ranch. We'll talk about those in a bit as well. The natural habitat came up a lot. People really appreciate being able to be on the rail trail and experience the wetlands and the wildlife and the birds and all those kinds of things. And so it was really important to people that we preserve that experience as much as possible. And then just maintenance, like Heinrich mentioned, there's some sealing and some root barrier work done earlier this year. People definitely expressed that they appreciated that and wanted that to keep going.
So whenever you ask the public, you get a theme, as Maria has noted, but we also got some more extreme aspects. So we had several people say, bring the train back. We had people, could you use it for a gondola corridor? We also got a fair amount of feedback, like leave it alone, no one uses it. We had people that were adamant that we needed to light it, and people who were adamant that God forbid you put any lights out there. So, it really, what I'm stressing with that is it really was driven by the public. Now, the consultants, we did put things on maps to have people react to certain things, but I feel like the recommendations that we have moving forward meet that sort of common goal that was reflected in the previous slide.
So thinking about goals, we developed some goal statements early on that we vetted with stakeholders and with the public in the first public meeting. And so they're shown here, but the recommendations that we are making are kind of reflecting these. So making sure that we have comfortable places for people of all ages and all abilities. That's, that's seating, that's restrooms, things like that. We'll talk about that in a minute. Highlighting those connections to places that people want to go, whether those are recreational, whether those are business districts. And then having an action item list that we can move forward with, where we can say, here are the things that need to happen first, second, third. So we'll get to those later as well.
Okay, and just reiterating, these are draft recommendations, and they are, Emma just told me before I came down here, that they are on our Park City Engage page, and there is a comment section for the public. So we encourage not only Planning Commission to give feedback, but obviously the public over the next couple of weeks to do so as well. So trail, obviously being the rail trail, this is it. This is what we came up with. The rail trail in itself is about 10 feet wide. It differs throughout the corridor, between 8 at the narrowest and maybe 11 at the widest. But what we came up with was basically that paved 10-foot pathway and adding an 8-foot soft surface. And so what that does is it provides the width to allow people to actually utilize it, the bikes, ideally on the paved corridor, and then walkers, not necessarily prohibited from other areas, but they can use the soft surface. Additionally, the surface will dictate where those modes go. And with this plan, it doesn't preclude the city or future planning to maybe put in a vertical delineation. So you could, if it doesn't work out, we could put panels down it for a little while if we needed further delineation. But this is a great first step. And I think it's important that we started at the 10-foot where people were asking for more width. We actually vetted a cross section that was all the way to 26 feet wide. and it was pavement, and it was something that was supported by a fair amount of people, even on the walk committee. And so we presented that in open house, and we got a lot of feedback that that was way too wide. I personally agree with that. So it's gone from 10 feet to 26 feet to 18 feet, and I think this is a pretty fair medium. Do I have wagon trail? Oh, I forgot this one. So this is an existing facility. I will give kudos to Bo Pickin on the walk committee. He's the one who actually came up with the name. If you're familiar with the rail trail, you'll also be familiar with just to the south of it is what I have been told was the old wagon trail that went alongside the train. It's a existing corridor double track that runs a fair amount of it. It kind of drops down where the Chatham Hills area is. And then after some of those condos, it goes back up onto the hillside and goes all the way to Park City Heights. The recommendation is to make some small connections to this wagon trail area and move through a process in which we could possibly deal with the dog issue and the off-leash dog issue. So program the wagon area as possibly an off-leash trail so people can enjoy that form of recreation, and then retrospectively provide an additional enforcement on the rail trail.
So a lot of the comments that we got were about what to have at trailheads or not. They definitely wanted to see a different kind of emphasis at different trailheads depending on the neighborhood context. So we are going to walk through what is in, can you go to the, thank you. So just to give you kind of a big picture of what we're talking about at the different trailheads. So the major nodes are the yellow stars, the minor nodes are the blue stars, and we'll break this down in more detail in the next couple of slides, but I just wanted you to see the whole picture. So the major nodes are at White Pine, right behind Silver Mountain Spa, at at Wyatt Earp, and then at Richardson Flat Road. And then the minor nodes are at Comstock, at Chatham Hills, at the bottom of the Skid Row Trail, and then at SR 248. Just kind of big picture while we're talking, there are a couple large scale amenities that we're talking about adding in different places. One is restrooms. That was something that we heard from people. They would like to have more restrooms along the corridor. We are talking about those at the White Pine Trailhead. So there's a little patch of land that is towards the east side of the parking lot that we think we could fit a vault toilet in there. Bathrooms also at the Wyatt Earp Trailhead, but not right there at the crossing, actually at Prospector Park. So we'd need to kind of direct people off the trail a little bit to know that there's a bathroom there at the park. And then the third one would be at Richardson Flat Roads Trailhead. So again, kind of interspersed throughout the corridor at some kind of a reasonable distance to give people the opportunity to use those kinds of facilities. The other thing that I wanted to mention was parking. I believe the only place we're proposing more parking in this plan is at Richardson Flat Roads, and I'll get into that detail in a moment. But to move on to get into a little bit finer grain. There we go. Wait a minute. Go back. Oh, okay. Well, I'll just talk through it because I got it on my page right here. So we're not talking about the exact same kinds of amenities at each trailhead. I'll talk through this one since the slide's up, and then we'll just talk through the other one. So starting at the east end of the corridor, minor node at SR 248. There's going to be a separate process to work on a grade separated crossing there at 248 that Heinrich is moving forward with now. So that really is pretty minor. It's just directional signage, some seating, a couple of benches, and maybe some interpretive panels. The major node that is proposed at Richardson Flats is a little bit bigger. I mentioned the parking. There is a surplus property that is owned by UDOT in that area that we are going to be talking with them about possibly using as a parking lot. We mentioned the restrooms. We thought this was also a good place for things like, a shelter with a picnic table. This also has some of the more standard kind of small scale amenities like dog waste, bag stations. That was something that came up a lot in the feedback. People wanted more of the little mutt mitts to pick things up. Trash cans and recycling, seating. I want to mention too, Heinrich said lighting. Like some people are adamant, we need more lights. Other people were equally adamant, we need no lights. The compromise that we landed on was lighting only at bathrooms and roadway crossings. So we have 3 bathrooms, we have 2 roadway crossings, so 5 locations, but not along the rest of the corridor. And then the lighting would be, dark sky friendly, downward pointing, solar powered, pretty small scale. So that's what we're talking about with that. Moving eastward along the corridor, minor node 3 there at the base of Skid Row, just dogway stations, some seating, maybe some interpretive panels there. You've probably seen them throughout the corridor. There's a couple that are kind of talking about like the former rail depots, they're just like little educational panels. There's some great opportunities, such interesting history along this corridor to tap into more of that and have a few more of those panels. Major node 3 at Wyatt Earp Way. So bike fix-it stations, bike racks in case people wanted to like ride their bike there and then pop over to the park. We mentioned the restrooms. Again, this might be an opportunity for a shelter, some seating, dog waste bags, kind of the basics. Moving closer in towards town, the next one up would be at Chatham Hills, kind of where there's that big berm there. This would just be some directional signage and wayfinding, a couple of benches, some art. Next one in is at Comstock, dog waste bags, seating, art. The next major node to the west would be behind Silver Mountain Spa. That one is exercise equipment. That was an idea that we had, stuff that people like get on and do pull-ups and whatever. I don't use them, so I don't really know what's on there, but people like them. So there you go, exercise equipment. Some seating, dog waste bags, art. We did get feedback from our stakeholder group that they wanted to see art at every trailhead location, so it is shown everywhere. And then the last one at White Pines, we just talked about the restrooms, trail lighting at the restrooms, some seating, interactive educational panels, dog waste bags, directional signing. So that's pretty much the scope of it.
We'll go through the crossing real quick.
Just wanted to note, so there are, 2 at-grade road crossings that we are talking about here. One is at Wyatt Earp Way, the other one is at Richardson Flats Road. What our thought is with Wyatt Earp Way is that, Heinrich mentioned that on peak days, there's 200 people an hour on this trail, walking and biking together, but that is likely a lot more than is traveling on this roadway every day, just given it's kind of a dead end area to some residences. So our thought was, let's have the trail be the priority and require the cars to stop. So that's what the design of this is communicating. People on the trail would be notified that there's a crossing ahead and advised to slow down, but it would be the cars that are required to stop. And then at Richardson Flat Road, we did look at the crossing that's there. You've got a rapid rectangular flashing beacon or an RRFB that's already there. We think that's pretty effective. We would just add some high visibility crosswalk striping there, noting that, maybe there's not as much traffic there now as there's going to be in the future, but that's going to start to get to be a more sticky crossing in the future when you have more traffic.
And they're changing the way the barrier is set up, because right now the barrier there is not great.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
tight for bikers. Like I've watched numerous people almost whack their handlebars going through there.
And I'm glad you brought that up. That was something that we heard a lot from folks.
It did slow them down though.
Not in the way that we want them to. Yeah. Yes.
Some of them are going so slow that they might flip over.
Yeah, we are recommending gates that are far enough apart that a person on a hand cycle or a recumbent or carrying a trailer behind them can get around enough. And that's also going to mean that the space that's between the end of that gate and the end of the trail will need to be wide enough for them to maneuver through. But that is a design detail that will need to be worked out in the future, but that's a great point. I think that is it about.
Yeah, I think that's the improvement. So just real quickly, trying to keep you guys on schedule. So I discussed that we'd anticipate taking this to council in the late summer. This summer, fall, probably be pretty minimal improvements, some striping. We put additional trash cans out there. We would raise the level of service, meaning our guys would be out there, collecting the trash and removing the trash more frequently. We'd probably do a little bit more noxious weed abatement in those areas. So, and some minor wayfinding, and then prepare for sort of winter maintenance, possible grooming of it. And then there's a couple other things. There's obviously going to be some environmental permitting associated with that and some coordination with UDOT. 23 to 25, obviously, that's when we would probably see more of the improvements to the trail after they are permitted and moved through. Did you have any comments on that one?
No, go ahead.
Okay. And then 25 to 27, we anticipate the phases of the improvements moving sort of west to east. So from Bonanza, sort of moving down the area closer to 248. Probably has a little bit more permitting that we have to go through. And then that dovetails really nicely into Julia Collins and myself have been working on some grants for an overpass of 248 and in coordination with the county, because that would be then Snyderville Basin in the county section. So I think we have a great opportunity to make that connection and a big improvement. So that is all I have. Maria, do you have anything, or Charlie?
No, it's a great job.
Trying to keep you on schedule, Sarah.
Thank you.
So I would open it up. If you have any questions, we'd love to take them. I would like to again remind, sorry not to be a broken record, that these recommendations are up on our Park City Engage website, and we'd love to have people chime into that comments section and provide some more feedback.
Okay. Well, thanks for that update, guys. Commissioners, do you have any comments based off of what we have here in front of us? I mean, I think this is largely community driven. I appreciate the efforts that you guys have put in the outreach, and yeah, I think it's fantastic that we are taking the input from the broader community and trying to implement what we feel is kind of a consensus of the community. So I think this is great, and I really appreciate you guys showing us what you've got going on here. Commissioners?
I'll just say kudos to you guys. I think it's fantastic. Everything I looked at looked great. So I have no other real comments. I think it looks good.
I agree completely. I love the plan so far. I agree with keeping the lighting to like the minimal areas around the trailheads, signage, stuff like that. And I think that's it. I'm excited to see the changes come because we use that trail very routinely. So it'll be exciting to see it.
Yeah, love this so much. So thank you for working on it. I'm excited to use it with the improved amenities. I would love to see some like rules of the road for that signage. Just I feel like we've had like this influx of people who are like not accustomed to ordinary rules of usage. So that would be great. Like, here's how right-of-ways work.
Yeah, Commissioner Hall, I just want to, there is a, first of all, kudos to the chamber for providing some sustainability tourism grants. We're hopeful not only it's the city, but Mountain Trails Foundation and Snyderville Basin Recreation. We're looking at collaborating with the chamber on, a one website where people can get all trail information, meaning trail closures, trail information, etiquette, directions, et cetera, associated with that. And additionally, from the website, also grants associated with producing that content. So a few years ago, we did a video on our wayfinding system. That was right before COVID. And I know a lot of people have said, how does the wayfinding system work? Well, there's actually a video and a pretty extensive page that we didn't market well. But we are hopeful that this summer we really move the needle on that stuff. So I appreciate that comment.
Awesome. And then a few other things. I agree with the public comment. Like when I'm a biker, I'm frustrated with the walkers and the off-leash dogs and the strollers. And then when I'm walking my dog or pushing a stroller, I'm also terrified of the bikers. So I'm actually very excited to see the separation of modes. If anything, I would love to see the barrier or like a horizontal plus a vertical barrier, because I feel like there's, at least currently, like there's a lot of zigzagging going on. And then I would like, since we're doing the improvements now, I would be curious to know like what the possibility of laying, like not having the lighting installed immediately, but laying the pipe for it so that at a later point, if part of the active transportation plan does have like downward lighting that is dark skies compliant, but we do find that say like the affordable MPD that's under Planning Commission now and the Park City Heights communities are really using this as an active transportation, that they really have a desire for union lighting, that we could not have to rip up the whole pathway to accommodate that. So that would be a question, I guess. And
We were talking about solar. That's what we're about.
Yeah, I don't know how it would be implemented or if there's like some other, but yeah, and I would be probably for the barrier preemptively, just because of my mixed uses and my experiences.
Yeah, and I think I want to stress that again. I like this. We have not removed that possibility, but it provides us a really good opportunity to like do some pilot studies on, you know, what may work without having to make a major capital investment in something maybe we could even improve or like remove and put in. So I think we're going to be doing a lot of that out there.
Yeah, because right now I feel like you can't really use it as a transportation, like an alternative transportation, because you're not very efficient because of, but I feel like we could make it that way.
I rode in this morning. I know what you're.
Okay.
So
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, let's keep
I'll
moving forward.
make it quick. I really like the 18-foot compromise. I think you fell in the right spot right there. Keep it natural, minimal lighting. I'm with the other commissioners. Higher elevation in the road base. It's not going to cost that much more money, but you know the general plan calls it out too for a walkable and sustainable. The elevation differences you mentioned. I don't like the divider in between the two. I would say a 6-inch higher road base for the walkable does define the separation between the walkability and the bikes. So last but not least, the rules of the road. And we would be forever remiss if we did not start with the 10 seconds of kindness.
I agree.
Is there a public comment on Zoom or in the room, or is that later?
I'm sorry. I'm hearing someone, but it's not picking up on a mic.
Any public comment in this room on this topic, or is that here or on Zoom? Or
Again, I'm not hearing.
John, the question from a member of the audience is there public comment associated with this, whether in the room or on Zoom?
No, not necessarily. We don't really have much time. We're already over, but I think you can reach out to staff and provide additional input as, you know, as this has all been based off of public input. So, and she'll reach out to Heinrich and the team if you want to give additional comments, but I'd love to, but we're already charted to go past our 9:30 tonight.
Heinrich, do you want to say the website one more time for the public?
It's the Engage Park City page. It's the rail trail. So I think it's parkcityengage.com. Sorry. And it's under rail trail. It's right there. You can find it.
And I will say this too, though. You could also send your comments to the planning department to forward on to the planning commission if it's something that you want us to hear as well. So I apologize, but we really do have a book tonight. So any
All right, well then moving on to continuation. So we have 3 of those. We will, I guess, go on to Founders Place. And we're really just looking to open the public for public comment, and then we'll ask for a motion to continue. So for Founders Place, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak upon this item? I don't have the Zoom thing.
No hands raised.
Okay. All right, seeing no one from the public, is there a commissioner who would like to make a motion?
I motion to continue Founders Place development agreement ratification to July 13th, 2022.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving to the second item, 2000 Meadow Drive for the Park Meadows Country Club. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak about this item? All right, that looks like a no. So closing the public comment. Is there a commissioner who would like to make a motion?
I move we continue 2000 Meadows Drive to August 24th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Moving to the third continuation, the general plan supplemental update for the long-range transportation plan. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on that item? All right, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. Is there a commissioner who would like to make a motion?
I move to continue general plan supplement update long-range transportation plan to August 10th, 2022.
Second.
A second by Commissioner Kentworthy. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, moving to our work session. We now have the, oh, he is back. Hey, JP.
Hey, thank you.
Go
Sorry about that. I hit a button on my computer and everything shut down.
We motioned that the three continued items would continue.
Okay, thank you. All right, so then we're to the work session, item 6A, the moderate income housing element of the general plan. And we've got 45 minutes slated for this. So go ahead, housing team.
We're getting set up.
Jason Glidden, Housing Development Manager. I'll jump in really quick. Rhoda's going to be giving the majority of this presentation tonight, but I'll just preface it by starting by saying that this is just an informational presentation for you guys of what's, really an update on what happened at the state level and the requirements that we're required to meet as a city as part of our moderate housing plan that we submit every year. So this will be coming back to the Planning Commission to get some feedback on later in July, I believe.
July 27th.
July 27th. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rhoda.
Okay, those were my opening remarks. Thank you, Jason. It really sets the stage. It's just a bit of information so that you understand that the meat of this will be coming back to you for discussion, a much fuller discussion July 27th. Basically, the background is that Park City, we've had an aggressive housing program since the early 90s. We currently have 650 units of affordable housing in town, and our past moderate income housing plans and reports have been utilized by the state to give examples of good planning and reporting to other Utah communities. So I would say that we were way ahead of the game before the state started instituting requirements for these reports and plans. So in 2022, in the ledge session this year, they adopted a new rule, HB 462, which updates a couple-year-old one, HB 34, and it's all regarding the moderate income housing plans and how they want reports and plans submitted. It sets out new reporting and assessment requirements to ensure that the plans are achievable, realistic, and based on actual needs. So quickly, the changes are that there's a different report deadline. It's now October instead of December. They now have winnowed the strategy, the options for strategy to address the housing needs down to 24 that are published by the state. Jurisdictions with fixed guideway transit systems must choose 5 strategies as well as complete a stationary plan. Jurisdictions without fixed guideway transit systems must choose 3 strategies. And I point out here, Park City is a jurisdiction without a fixed guideway transit system. We can also get extra credit by choosing 2 additional strategies since
quick,
we are
sorry.
a jurisdiction without.
Rhoda, not to interrupt. Back one slide. What does that actually mean? Like the fixed guideway transit versus not? I just don't know what that means.
Yeah, I believe it mostly is, you have the rail system that's present in Salt Lake. So that would be considered the fixed guideway. Is also bus rapid transit. When that actually comes into play, may bump us up as well. So, but for right now, we don't have either of those. So we are
Okay, so just our regular transportation system doesn't count.
That's correct.
No problem. So, and those that do have fixed guideway transit systems can, if they add one additional strategy, in both these cases, these overachiever cases, you get enhanced prioritization for funding, as well as American Rescue Plan Act matching program funds. So the reporting format, I'm pointing this out because now they will be publishing a new reporting format July 1st. We don't have the details on that yet, but we do know that they are going to require measurable goals and projected timelines, which is a little more stringent or tighter than it was in the past. And each subsequent year will require reports on accomplishments to meet those goals, as well as stating the issues that prevented you from fulfilling what you had established as your goals. Finally, our next steps is that, as we stated at the beginning, we are preparing a proposed updated moderate income housing element to the general plan, which also the state is calling the moderate income housing plan. And this plan will include the state's reporting requirements. It will include current needs and recommend strategies from the state's list of options. The drafted plan and report will be brought to you for a full discussion on July 27th. And we wanted you to be to know that we have actually already heard that the members of the Planning Commission really want to hear that some of the goals regarding will regard land management code changes to incorporate some of the things, some of the interests that the commission has expressed. We are open to questions.
Go ahead, commissioners.
Can you update us on the definition of moderate income? Is the state define that?
So the discussion's still at the state. So, excuse me, as part of the Commission on Housing Affordability that's been set up at the state level, they recently looking at defining that, and I think that it's changed a little bit. They're looking at the moderate being from really 80% to like 120%. And then low income housing or affordable housing at 80% and below. But again, this target is kind of moving and it's under discussion, and it's really tough for us because our demographics are a little bit different than a lot of the others in the state. So, but we will provide that update to you when we have clearer definitions on the 27th.
Yeah, I'm always concerned about the AMI number, and especially, is this being defined on a city level or is this going to be defined on the county level for us here?
AMI is established on the county level. However, we as a city, the staff in the housing team have always compared the actual workforce wage, average workforce wage here in town against AMI, and that helps us establish the target we want or we see as a need. And that is usually 60% of AMI.
Yeah, where do you factor in that number from the people who really work here that live in Salt Lake and Heber and Peoa? A lot of especially the service workers do not live in our county even anymore. So where do we factor in those numbers? Because they're even lower.
Actually, that is workforce wage numbers. It's who works here in town.
Works here.
Yeah.
So it's not who works here that lives in the county.
No.
It's who works here on the commute and with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be brief and say I'm excited for the July 27th meeting where we dive deeper. I would love recommendations on how we can spend more time on the LMC to really incorporate these goals and this plan, or within the plan that we are actually implementing some of the strategies.
Can you turn on your mic?
Sorry, I was eating. And I'd probably be including even, I know we just did the affordable MPD, but given that there's an application pending that doesn't even qualify, like maybe we need to revisit that to really encourage private developers to step up.
Yeah, review of the AMPD is something we have on our task list. We kind of wanted to let this go through and play through to see how it played out. And we've been meeting with the developers that have been considering these and trying to get some feedback from them on areas that maybe there's still challenges that maybe we need to revisit. But we kind of wanted to let a couple of them play through. So, and I believe we have 2 applications in right now currently. So
Yeah, I would just like, as a commission, I would love to allocate more time to that. A little personal pipe dream.
All right. Anything else from the commissioners? I mean, obviously, the more robust discussions are going to be in late July. So I appreciate you guys kind of queuing this up and informing us so that we can kind of have our minds wrapped around it and be prepared for that. And as always, you guys are doing a great job. And I look forward to to having the discussions. This is always a top priority in the community. So glad to have you guys working on it.
well, thank you. We're happy to help try to keep this meeting moving forward. So
Great job.
Hopefully we've done our part.
Yes, you have. Absolutely. All right. Well, commissioners, anything else? Okay. Well, let's see. Excellent. So that'll help us jump ahead. Next we have the let's see. Next we're into our regular agenda, item 7A, Foxtail Trail, if we can get everyone in position for that.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I am just loading up my screen.
No, we need to we need to request a recess for just a minute. We just can't have people leaving. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not notice.
2 minutes.
Okay, so
John,
we'll
just 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Okay, 2-minute recess.
Sorry.
Sorry, no, Sarah's my bad.
I know he should have, I was like.
Okay.
All right, good evening, Planning Commission. Planner Alex Ananth here tonight with 3805 Foxtail Trail. And I believe I'm going to be joined by the applicant's representative, Doug Ogilvie from Redis, fairly soon. But this application is proposing to create a 3.8 acre lot, as well as a parcel of 28 almost 29 acres in the recreation and open space district, and the lot is mostly in the estate district. This application has been before the Planning Commission multiple times before, so I'm going to try not to take the whole 45 minutes that we've allocated to this project. Most recently, the Planning Commission held a site visit and a work session on May 11th. Just an overview of the site. It's a 33-acre parcel that is currently unimproved with the exception of trails. And it's located between the Hidden Meadows subdivision and the PC Heights, Park City Heights subdivisions. The site is outlined here in red, and you can.
Alex, you're not sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Is it? Okay, great. I'm just going to go back one slide. So this is an overview of the parcel outlined in black, located between the Hidden Meadows subdivision and the Park City Heights subdivision. The site is mostly located in the open space district, but there is a portion of the site that is zoned estate, which allows for single family houses as long as you have 3 acres of property. So 1 house per 3 acres. I'm not going to go into the history too much, but basically this lot was annexed into the city as part of the Hidden Meadows subdivision, which allocated density to the lot of 1 unit. This is the annexation plat showing the property in yellow. And this is the site plan that was approved. This was part of the Hidden Meadows subdivisions phase 2 plat that actually never moved forward. And then the option for the phase 2 expired in 2002, but the density remains allocated to the lot for 1 single family house. The site does have some development constraints. Notably, most of the lot is located in the recreation open space, which prohibits residential development. There is a utility easement as well as a ridgeline area, which further limits development as the LOD has to be 150 feet from the ridgeline area. So that really limits the developable portion of the lot to this estate portion right here, just north of the utility easement. So the applicant is proposing to create 1 lot of 3.8 acres, mostly located in the estate zone, although there is a small portion that is in the ROS zone, but that cannot be developed on. And then parcel A is 29 acre site that will be dedicated to the city. And that is condition 21 of the draft board order. The limits of disturbance are for this lot are shown on lot 1, and they are all contained outside of the ridge line, outside of the utility easement, and within the estate district. The applicant is offering a restrictive covenant to the city, which is Exhibit M of the staff report, that further prohibits development in the ROS district. This slide just shows the limits of disturbance. When this lot was annexed in as part of the Hidden Meadows subdivision, the lots in that annexation were given LODs and maximum building sizes, and staff is proposing to remain consistent with those original LODs and maximum house sizes. So the proposed subdivision of 1 lot complies with the lot and site requirements for the estate and open space zoning district. This shows the ridgeline areas with the site right here, so you can see that ridgeline area which is restricted from development. The applicant in this estate zone, the maximum building height is 28 feet, which the applicant is proposing to stick to. And further, they are saying that there will be nothing that projects above the 7,135 feet of elevation, which is the zone height plus the roof pitch. And this slide shows that a building of that height should not be visible from any of the city's vantage points, including the closest one, which would be 248. There is some trails, as I mentioned earlier, on this site, and the applicant is proposing to remove one portion of a trail, which is actually not an official trail, but a shortcut to a trail. And this shortcut, or this will be, the trail will still have access from Foxtail Court with an extension here that connects to the trail. The open space manager has reviewed this and has expressed his support for the removal of that shortcut trail. So the Planning Commission is allowed to look at maximum dwelling size and LODs for subdivisions. And we've compiled a table of some of the other larger lots in the Hidden Meadows subdivision. And this shows you that lots of substantial size, like this lot is with 33 acres, typically have an LOD of 16,000 square feet and a maximum floor area of 10,000 square feet. And that is what is proposed in the conditions of approval for this lot. The applicant has agreed to a minimum rental period of 12 months and will not, and the site will not be used as a timeshare or for fractional ownership. And they've agreed to a condition of approval as well as a restrictive covenant to the Hidden Meadows HOA that expresses that. And that is condition 24 in the staff report or the draft ordinance. There have been multiple public comments over the course of this project. And I believe the applicant has addressed most of these comments in the conditions of approval, but I'm happy to talk about any of them if there are more concerns. So staff finds good cause for this subdivision as it protects the ridgeline area, does not increase density, encourages orderly and beneficial development, and complies with the state and ROS zoning district lot and site requirements, as well as the requirements for sensitive lands overlay. The applicant has offered restrictive covenants in favor of the city for the open space and has agreed to conditions of approval and a restrictive covenant to the Hidden Meadows HOA prohibiting short-term rentals. So staff is recommending that the commission conduct a public hearing and consider forwarding a positive recommendation to City Council. I have some conditions of approval that I'm happy to highlight if anyone has additional questions, but I did want to note that I have sort of redlined 3 conditions of approval. Just the intent has not changed at all, just really cleaning up the language to make sure they sound good. That's it for my presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, great. I'll turn to the commission for questions and comments. If there's any, if there are any, especially clarification questions before I open up the public hearing eventually. So go ahead, commissioners. I know we had our site visit was very helpful to me, I know. And then the history of this and what it began to what we're ending up with, I think is a far better use of this particular property. So I appreciate the applicant working with us, and I know it's been a long road, as well as trying to address as many of the concerns of the neighbors as possible. It seems like you also have some neighbors that are in agreement with this. So that's all I have. I had some questions about the height and the maximum set off of elevation because it's not typical, but as I've reviewed it further, it made sense, and it's just kind of an addition to the zone height, which is already, restricting the height, but I have no objection to adding that additional condition of the height based off of sea elevation. So I'm in favor of that as well. Yeah, I don't have any remaining concerns on this myself. So those are my comments. So if the commissioners don't have anything, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing then. I'm sorry.
Right. The applicant just showed up.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's hard when I'm not there. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Ogilvy?
Sorry, I was following on Zoom. My apologies for showing up late here. The housing discussion was shorter than I anticipated.
Well, who would have thought that we would actually be ahead of schedule, huh?
Congratulations.
We'll correct that.
So anyway, I think Planner Anath did an excellent job presenting this. We've been trying to listen to the neighbors, and I think the proposal as it stands before you is a very logical use for the property. It does address the majority of concerns that can be addressed while permitting development on the lot. So I welcome to hear what the public has to say tonight.
Okay. Let's just go ahead and get the public comment so we can factor that in as well. So I'll open up the public hearing. If there's anyone, you can step up to the podium or you can raise your hand in Zoom. And we'll start with in person. Go ahead.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is James Letchford. I'm the president of the Hidden Meadows Homeowners Association. I shot you all an email today just requesting that the public actually speaks after the applicant this go around, just because we've had a short amount of time to address our concerns, and then the applicant then just comes in and is able to, he made some misrepresentations last meeting, and we just want to make sure those are addressed. Commissioner Phillips, just so you know, there are no neighbors that are in agreement to this project, 0. Mr. Liggett owns the land next door, but he's not a neighbor. He doesn't live in our community. So if that's okay, we do have some neighbors that do want to speak. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess my intent was to get your comments so that we can factor it into our deliberations early. So I could potentially open up the public comment again later if you want to respond to anything. It seems you represent the broader community there, so I'd love to hear what the neighbors have to say, and I can completely understand your position on that. So
okay, thank you, sir. Well, we're going to let the neighbors speak then. Thank you.
If you speak, can you be sure to sign in once you finish? Just record your name.
Sure.
Good evening. My name is Mary Danley, and I'm here with my husband, Mike Danley. We live at 3817 Solomere Drive, which is just up the street from the cul-de-sac where this proposed development is supposed to take place. I want to start just by stressing that this is our home. I mean, we don't come here to spend 2 weeks skiing and then go somewhere else. This is where we live. We use that area, that recreational area, literally every single day. And if Mr. Ogilvy was there every single day, he'd see me on my mountain bike. He'd see my husband on his mountain bike. He'd see us come down there with our 2 dogs that love to run around on the trails down there. And one of the things that really perplexes me about this application and the extent to which it seems to be receiving favorable consideration by the commission, at least at this time, is that you have an entire neighborhood, and we are primarily full-time residents of Park City. You have an entire neighborhood opposed to this application and the impact that it will have on our recreational use of that area and on the aesthetics of our community, and potentially on our ability to enjoy the peace and solitude that we currently enjoy in our neighborhood. I am perplexed. How is it that the interests of one private developer, who's probably going to sell this, by the way, to somebody that is going to come in and out for vacations, or maybe even one of our primary concerns, use it for short-term rentals. But he's not even he's not even in the neighborhood. And yet this application, it's like his voice is outweighing not just one person's voice. It is outweighing the voice of the entire neighborhood. But not to mention, it goes beyond that. This affects Park City as a whole. So many people utilize that area. It is currently zoned for recreational use. And I understand he submitted a revised application, but there's still an impact on recreational use. And not why? Why would you give 1 inch of recreational use over to a private developer? Not 1 inch is justified. And I'll tell you how I know that the entire public at large in Park City, beyond just the Hidden Meadows HOA, is impacted. I'm part of State Park City Cycling. I was on a bike ride this weekend. That's it. We're immersed in the community, just so you know. And the guy next to me on his bike doesn't live in Hidden Meadows. Says to me, oh gosh, I've been following the Planning Commission. He goes, yeah, I just can't understand it. He says, there's this lot up off Foxtail Trail. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. He goes, yeah, I've been following it. He goes, I don't understand it. It's just like they're gonna approve everything if they're gonna approve that. So you need to understand, this goes beyond just our few streets and the few homes on Solomere. And one of the things that is so concerning, because I've been on some of these hearings. I was on that one that lasted 5 hours and waited to be heard. Waited and waited and waited. It was a test of stamina, let me tell you. And one of the primary things I said then was, I can't understand why the opposition of the community is so consistently misrepresented. It is so consistently, oh, we think we've addressed all the concerns. It boils down to two homeowners that still are opposed. I have seen that so many times, and it really angers me because it is absolutely categorically false. Our entire HOA is opposed to this. I want to also address, so I just want to say that in terms of we've listened to the neighbors and nobody seems to oppose, we dispute that. I also want to talk about the notion that the restrictive covenants address our concerns. They don't. There's absolutely no reason why this lot should not be part of our HOA. And the applicant has not offered that up, has not agreed to be annexed to the HOA. And these restrictive covenants, their agreement could be modified at the flip of a switch. It's really meaningless to us, and there's no ability for us to enforce that. The nightly rentals are a concern. And as I understand how this applicant has changed the application, the proposed building area is now moved really close to the curb. And it used to have this 700-foot driveway, as I understand it. And now I think that's been brought right close up to the curb of that cul-de-sac, where everybody comes with their dogs, their children, where we ride our bikes every day. And this 10,000 square foot monstrosity is proposed to be parked in that area. And one of the things I can't understand, another thing I can't understand, which I've said a few times tonight, is where are all the cars for the occupants of this 10,000 square foot home going to park their cars? Where do you think they're going to park their cars? They're going to park their cars right there in that cul-de-sac that we use every single day. How many cars do you think that a home that has room that's 10,000 square feet, you could put probably 30 people in that home? And
I apologize to interrupt, but I do need you to get through your comments.
Okay, thanks so much. I will. So that's a concern. I likewise have a concern about the disturbance to the environment, the natural habitat. I don't think that can be ignored. So I want to just make sure that that's heard. But I think my biggest concerns I've stated, and again, I do have concerns about the impact on the neighborhood, impact on Park City as a whole, people that use that area for recreational use, and the inability to enforce the nightly rentals, the disturbance to the environment, and as I mentioned, the potential disturbance to our ability to enjoy the neighborhood if becomes a parking lot down on that cul-de-sac. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I don't have a pen. Good evening, signing in here real quick. My name is Joan Card, and at the risk of being boring, but for the sake of efficiency, I'm actually going to read my comments, and it should take me about 4 minutes to get through them. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm here with my husband tonight, Andy Dannerbeck, as well. We own property and live with our college-age daughter in the home at 3764 Foxtail Trail. That's lot 28, 2 lots away from the proposed new subdivision. We've been Park City residents since 2002. Greater Foxtail, as I call it, is a beautiful spot. Foxtail Trail is a residential street, a cul-de-sac, and a hiking and biking trail. That's the name, Foxtail Trail, of all 4 of those uses and places. The lots on Foxtail Trail are the eastmost lots. You've been there, and what I understand to be the United Park City Mine Company's first foray into residential development, Hidden Meadows. On our side of the street, the Rocky Mountain Power Line limits development opportunities, making the cost of lots attainable to Park City locals who built our house, my house, in 2006. That was Steve and Charlene Brewster. And then the Johnston's house next door to us was built and occupied by Fred and KK Heslop, again, longtime locals in Park City. We're certainly among the smallest houses in the subdivision, and the power lines constraints limit development opportunities in lot 29 next door, which remains vacant and is owned by longtime local Mark Lampy. Foxtail Trail, the street, and the cul-de-sac are used by many as trailheads, as the previous speaker emphasized. Access to zoned and dedicated open space, by far this community's most important and popular amenity. On a daily basis and literally hourly in the mornings, evenings, and weekends, people walk their dogs, hike, and bike past our house for either a quick walk around the lower Foxtail Trail loop, or after a ride on Lost Prospector, topping out in the cul-de-sac to head back home, or to climb again to Snowtop or another trail toward the Deer Valley Resort Trail Network. The property at issue tonight is a community amenity. Again, the previous speaker spoke to this. Please do not assume that the only people who care about what happens or have a stake in this spot are those who send written comments or attend planning commission meetings. Further to the point, and about the importance of open space access from Foxtail Trail on the cul-de-sac, the city installed trail markers in the center of the privately owned Lot 26 to guide the many users as trailhead markers effectively, leading users for at least more than 2 decades to understand this property is de facto open space and open for recreation use. Why would the city do this? Why would the city put those trail markers in the middle of Lot 26? I surmise that city staff viewed Hidden Meadows Lot 26 the way I long viewed Lot 26, as a homeowner and former city employee. During 2010 to 2013, I was the city's environmental regulatory program manager, and my responsibilities centered on understanding the environmental legacy of hard rock mining here, and specifically understanding the roles and responsibilities of United Park City Mines Company and its parent at the time, Talisker. That's how I came upon a plat map of my subdivision, the map that shows Lot 26 in the subdivision and that the records indicated was owned by the mine company. A lot, to my knowledge, that was never marketed for sale by the mine company, never proposed for development by the mine company, and in my eyes, those of my neighbors, and I suspect the many Foxtail Trail trailhead users, never would be. This also, I believe, is the reason, or at least a reason, the city would install trail markers on the center of a private lot, Lot 26. Perhaps like me, city staff have only recently learned that the recorded plat for our subdivision does not include lot 26, despite the indications on the former map that I had seen and maintained here in city files. That fact has come as a surprise and is new information is relevant to your decision-making on the bank's application. Long story short, the mine company and Talisker simultaneously avoided their responsibilities to pay for their legacy of environmental contamination in our community and profited from the development on their lands at and near Deer Valley Resort, as well as their controversial and painful sale of Park City Mountain Resort to Vail. Somehow, that way of doing business resulted in a bankruptcy, and the bank lost its bet that the mine company and Talisker were worthy creditors, having acquired Lot 26 and adjacent lands, among other parcels throughout the area, through foreclosure. Here we are now, the city, the planning commission, the neighborhood, and the myriad trail users facing an unexpected application to create a new standalone subdivision and permit a 10,000 square foot house, disrupting the historic use of this special piece of land down the street and our collective community expectations about it. The standard for your application, for your action on this application is good cause. According to the staff report, good cause means providing positive benefits, including public amenities and benefits, and preserving the character of the neighborhood and Park City, and furthering the health, safety, and welfare of the Park City community. In short, the application requires goodness. Given the context I've tried to describe here and the impact on our enjoyment of our property, the impact on our neighborhood, and the impact on trailhead users, the applicant's demonstration to you that its proposal is good for Park City is not only legally required, but vitally important. I see little, if anything, in the proposal or staff report that shows good cause in the context I've tried to describe here. Further to the point, good cause is satisfied with findings that the proposal is not satisfied with findings that the proposal meets the land management code or is better than the initial proposal. A good cause demonstration and finding must be made in a larger community-focused context to ensure the furtherance of the health, safety, and welfare of the Park City community, as the staff report implores you and we implore you to do. Finally, the Planning Commission is not an application mill. The Planning Commission represents the people of Park City to make findings and recommendations to our elected leaders that are based on good cause. Goodness for me, my immediate neighbors, and the greater community. You have a very difficult job, and I appreciate your service. I can see how you might feel like you are a little more than an application processing body, but you're not. You are appointed to represent us as landowners, residents, and living, breathing members of the community. Unfortunately, to this point, we feel unrepresented in the face of the bank's application. We have not been consulted or included by the bank or the city staff in the development of the proposal, except through the hearing process and our own efforts to contact them and you. The provision of limited information by the applicant's representative and commission packet materials is not consultation. It's not inclusion. This approach has left us with the seemingly inadequate opportunity to write letters and provide comments in reaction to the application and the staff's findings. I wish for more than the city government. I wish for more from the city government that I really respect and admire and used to be part of. And this is why your representation of me, my family, and the other community members, present and not present, is so important to us and to the city council that you advise. On behalf of my family, our request is that you do not approve the application before you tonight. Thank you. And I'd be delighted to answer any questions, and I'd really appreciate it. I have copies. I'd appreciate it if my comments would be submitted to the paper file. Thank you.
Okay. we only have a certain amount of time for this scheduled item, so any more comments, we need to keep it to 3 to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. And thank you, Joan, for that discussion of good cause. This is the one thing that has perplexed me and my wife, who is an architect. Randy Johnston, I'm the house closest to this project at 3790 Foxtail Trail. And I will love to take credit myself, but it is actually my wife who came up with what I thought was the most relevant question about this application, which is why? Why do it? And the approach seems to be, is there reason not to do it? As opposed to the question of, is there a reason to do it? And good cause requires an affirmative finding of a reason to do it. And we've heard two. One, we've heard more recently from Redis, it's unfair that Wells Fargo and Redis own 33 acres that they can't develop, 33 acres that they acquired through foreclosure. Setting aside the fact that somebody owned that land for a very long period of time with these very same restrictions, and it presumably wasn't unfair to them. But I want to talk about that. And the second good cause that has been suggested to us by the staff when I first called about this was, well, they're going to give 28, or at that time, I think 24 acres to the city. And so I want to talk about those two things as good cause, if I may. And first I will say, with regard to the fairness issue, and I know you know this, but forgive my presumptuousness, I just feel compelled to say it. It's not the commission's job to make every business decision made by Wells Fargo and then through them Redis fair to them. They must live with the consequences of business decisions the same way we all do. So how did we get here? And some of the documents are hidden from, I shouldn't say hidden, some of the documents are simply not available to us. But here's the best we've been able to determine. A long time ago, a bank, and it may not have been Wells Fargo, made a very large loan to a corporation that owned lots of land throughout this county and took all of that land as collateral for the loan, including this 33-acre tract, not connected to all of the other tracts around. Owners changed, banks changed, loans got renewed, reduced, expanded, but as happens, the lender default. The bank foreclosed. And it appears to us that what happened was when the foreclosure took place, the bank posted all of the various properties for foreclosure in one sale, which quite candidly made it impossible for anyone to buy the land other than the bank. No one could have bought that 33-acre tract of land unless they were going to buy Bonanza and lots of other tracts of land. The bank acquired it by applying the loan. They were already out the money, so it wasn't any new money, but there's no doubt about the fact that they have been out money. I don't dispute that at all. Nor do I dispute the legality and the ethical approach that they used from that point forward. Because the office of the comptroller of the currency will not let a bank be a land speculator. And so once they acquired the land, they have to do something with it in order to avoid regulations by the federal government. Redis is there. They sell the land to Redis. Redis doesn't pay for it. Redis signs a new note. As Redis sells the land, the brother-in-law note to Wells Fargo is paid off, and Wells Fargo ultimately gets its money back. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency is now delighted because the bank had a loan that was not performing that would be written off as an asset and has substituted for it a new loan that is performing with a new entity.
I'm going to ask that you wrap up your comments. I apologize, but we do we've got to get through this.
I don't think that's 5 minutes, and this has been part of our problem is we don't feel we've had an opportunity to discuss these matters with the commission. So why is it unfair to hold Wells Fargo to the consequences of their business decision? We don't think it is. With regard to the 28 acres, I have written before about my questionable value of that due to the fact that it's been zoned recreational use only for decades. But I will say this, if it is of value, and that's the city's decision, not mine, then let the city buy it. Don't put the cost entirely on us. Don't trade a vote of the commission for that land. Let everyone share in it. And you could presumably buy it for the cost of simply the 4 acres. Do that and spare us. The last point I want to make is, as the commission has picked up, my neighbors, and I join in them, have felt a great deal of frustration, and we have felt unnecessarily adversarial to this commission. And I've asked myself why. That's not something we want. We look back when there was a 700-foot driveway and a 20,000 square foot house to be built on land that would be taken from recreational use only land, and the staff approved that. We're fine with that. And they were fine with the nightly rentals until we spoke up. And that shocked us. I have no quarrel with Mr. Ogilvy or Redis or Wells Fargo. I want them to live by their business decisions. Once we sit down and cease to talk, y'all are the ones that have to represent us to be sure good cause exists. We have longstanding rules in place. If they can be changed this easily, why have them? We ask y'all as gatekeepers to enforce the rules we have. We ask Redis and Wells Fargo to build on this track with the existing rules and don't burden our neighborhood with changes. And we ask them to live with the business decisions they have made. That is not unfair to them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, good evening. Again, my name is James Letchford. I've been on every single one of these calls all the way through from start to finish, just like you all have. We've been a topic for many months now, and it seems like it's coming to the head. Just to echo what some of my neighbors are saying, and there's a number of them on virtually right now that just couldn't make it. We want to know who represents us. Because I was speaking last time on the commissioner's call, and I got cut off because I asked who did Brown work for. And it wasn't to say or make an allegation. I was wondering, who does he work for? Does he work for the residents, the people who live here full time, or does he work for the developer? And I will really truly want to understand that, because we have city resources that are committed to this one man's development project, but who hears the residents other than this opportunity right now, Mr. Phillips, to speak up? Because we email, we talk. Mr. Ogilvy claimed at the end of his comments that he had forgotten, left me off, and he was communicating with 29 of my neighbors. I immediately polled our neighbors. 33 households had never heard from Mr. Ogilvy. 3 had heard from him and didn't respond. And I, who have been the most vocal one in all of this project, somehow had made it off that list. So who represents us? On the last staff report, in the public comments, Mr. Seabright's comments to the commissioners, the only comments that were brought up is our concerns with the trailhead and that we are going to lose some views, which I will also challenge that line of sight kind of thing, diagram that you have up there, because you're really not just looking up that way, but that's a whole different conversation. From the start of this development, back to the staff report, only two comments were that. Not once did he bring up any concerns about short-term rentals, this house falling under our Hidden Meadows Homeowners Association, so that it has accountability and enforceability. Not once did it say that. Not once did it bring up that we had a 100%, at one point, 100% signed petition by all the neighbors against this project. That never made it into the staff report. So who represents us? Okay. From the beginning of this project, it's been, as my neighbor Randy said, this has been a thumbs up from the planning side. And 20,000 square feet, 700-foot driveway, and nightly rentals. Not one, it took us to stand up and say, hey, nightly rentals in our community is not okay. In the November meeting, almost all of you said, I don't understand how a home can be built dead center of the Hidden Meadows community and not be in the Hidden Meadows Homeowners Association. Last call and meeting, all of you said, I don't know how he can be. Now, I understand there's some legalities there, but out of principle and understanding of an entire neighborhood against this project, dead center of where we live, how that can't be taken into account. Mr. Ogilvy, at the end of the last meeting, as he wrapped up, he said, I quote, "We've heard our concerns over short-term rentals and we've satisfied them." That's not true. I moved from California a couple of years ago. We lived right near the beach, beautiful area, beautiful community, and it turned into the rehab Riviera. Let me run some scenarios of a subdivision inside of 44 homes that has one homeowners association with one homeowners president who is homeowners to how many other homeowners associations? That, sure, let's confide with the 1 year rental. Well, 1 year of corporate retreat. Corporation signs a lease for a year and it's a rotating door of parties and corporations and meetings and all kinds of stuff. Or what's my beautiful wife and I have been approached when we lived at the beach, corporations wanting to sign 1 year leases so that they can make it a rehab facility. And know what happens then? All those recovering addicts, God bless them, protected under the Disabilities Act, that is absolutely untouchable. It's untouchable. And that's going in our neighborhood. And yes, to reiterate all of the great comments that my neighbors had, we use that trailhead every day. People drive in. All of Park City drives in to park their car, hike those trails, mountain bike those trails, run their dogs. This is our neighborhood. There's only two parties that benefit from this project, Mr. Ogilvy and the bank he represents. Thank you.
Hello, my name is John Curtis. I live at 3737 Solomere Drive. And I'd like to reiterate what my neighbors have said. That uniformly across the neighborhood and in the HOA, this is opposed. But it goes beyond our neighborhood. As has been pointed out, this will affect the entire city. The city and the community has recently spent a lot of money and a big effort to preserve open space and to promote the enjoyment of this open space through the trails and parks, etc. If this is approved, it will kill open space, it will interfere with access to the trails, and it'll also interfere with wildlife, migration, and the wildlife that we now enjoy in that area. So I won't take up the entire 5 minutes, but I would like to make sure that this is understood by the Planning Commission, that this is a problem for the city, not just our neighborhood. And one other thing that struck me, I can't understand how this, quote, gift of land to the city benefits the city that already controls that land. If this is not agreed upon, then we preserve this open space. And I think it might set a bad precedent in future development that people will feel, well, if we give the city some land, they will change the zoning because it's happened before. And so I think this is a very bad precedent to set. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Let's see. We've got one hand on Zoom. Phil Palmentier. Okay, you just there.
You're on mute. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great, thank you. I'm Phil Palmentier. I live at 3798 Solomere. And I echo the comments of the other people who've come before you to voice their concerns and issues, and who have urged you not to approve this. The reality is it's a 10,000 square foot, 10-bedroom, small hotel. Our comments to Mr. Ogilvy have gone unanswered. He goes radio silent. Then he comes in and says how he's addressed all of the concerns, and it just really isn't true. I understand that the nature of this public participation is comment rather than question. But I sure would love to just pose the question to Mr. Ogilvy, actually the invitation to Mr. Ogilvy. Mr. Ogilvy, why don't you just voluntarily join our HOA and become a part of it, become a voting member of it, become part of our community, and as such, of many of the issues you've heard today, would go away. So, it's an invitation to you, Mr. Ogilvy, if you're still there. Please just join our HOA. That way our HOA has an enforcement mechanism, in contrast to the paper tiger of a plat designation that as best as I can tell, has no enforcement mechanism. My second question is really either to staff or you in the Planning Commission, is if this does go forward with the plat restrictions and comments, to the best of my understanding, no one would enforce those. And so my question to you is, would you enforce those? And if so, how would you enforce them? How would the city enforce those restrictions that would prevent this from turning into a hotel? Those are my comments. And absent anything from Mr. Ogilvy addressing those materially, and I urge you to just vote no, turn this down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have one more hand raised, so I'll take that comment, and then I'm going to close the public hearing after that. We have Mr. Leventhal.
Yes, hi. Good evening. My name is Matt Leventhal. My wife and I own the house at 3781 Foxtail Trail, 2 houses down from the proposed development. As many of my neighbors have mentioned this evening, it does feel like the applicant has not really listened to the local neighbors as to what would be appropriate for us and for the community in the area. We think that the plan as still proposed doesn't take into account what would be best suited for all of us and indeed for the rest of the city. To the point of him taking into account comments from the rest of the neighborhood, we absolutely responded in the negative, and it seems that's fallen on deaf ears when he asked for comments from neighbors. But most importantly, we feel like if a development is going to go forward, it needs to be in line with everything else in the area that preserves the quiet and the natural setting that we're in, and is not completely incongruous with the other buildings that are around the rest of the subdivision. Some of that could be handled by joining the HOA. Some of that is just plain good sense. I think my neighbor, Randy Johnston, has sent a number of letters to the commission and to the applicant about size and what's appropriate with the rest of the development. There's no other 10,000 square foot houses in the neighborhood. In fact, most aren't even close. And so finding a way to create a development that's just in line with everything else in the area and preserves the natural access and the quiet of the rest of the neighborhood is paramount to us. So I hope you'll consider that in rejecting the plan as it's proposed.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing now. And I'll turn to the commissioners now for.
Phillips, did you see there is one more hand raised?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that must have come up during the last speaker. So I'll go ahead and allow one more speaker, but after that, I do have to cut it off. So we have Cooper and Joanna Williams. If you could keep it to 3 to 5 minutes, please.
Oh, sorry about that. Hi, my name's Cooper Williams. I live at 3677 Solomere Drive. And when this all started last summer, I initially reached out to Braun Seabright and I'm on the board of the HOA as well. I gave him my contact information to give to Mr. Ogilvy. And he really never got back to me until after the initial first meeting, and then he just had Braun send his email address to me. So I agree with everyone else. I don't feel like he was very sincere in his approach to include the neighborhood. But more importantly, the concerns, I agree with all the concerns of the neighbors, and the potential of a residential rehab center, corporate retreat. Those are, that could seriously alter our neighborhood. And I don't know how the city would be able to police that. But I feel like the burden falls on the city to ensure that kind of environment doesn't happen, because, it wouldn't simply be a single family home. It would be something completely different. And then my understanding is that area there, it's a sensitive nature corridor that runs roughly north and south, with that lot directly kind of in the middle of it. And we just had a sighting of a bear at right next door to the lot. We have moose all the time, deer, bobcat, mountain lions, turkeys, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if any kind of environmental impact study has been done. What would happen having another home in that area that is very sensitive. But I really think that would be a prudent course for the city to take, or for the applicant to take, if there's really consideration for this to go through. So, and that's all I really have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing now. And I'll turn to the commissioners for comments and questions. If anybody wants to go first.
I can go first. I at least have like a preliminary question for staff in regards to the enforcement mechanism for the deed restriction, because to me, a deed restriction on the property is actually more impactful than an HOA CC&R restriction, because it's recorded. But can you elaborate a little bit?
I agree that deed restrictions are recorded, and therefore no buyer would buy this property without being aware of the deed restriction. However, in general, the way enforcement works in the city is that the building department enforces based on a complaint. So if, a nightly rental were to occur, a neighbor reports it, it would be enforced and it would be eliminated. So all I can say is it's enforcement based by the building department, depending on deed restrictions or conditions of approval.
So that would be the same mechanism that we would use in a traditional HOA. For example, a neighbor within this HOA, it'd be the same enforcement mechanism.
Correct.
Okay.
City Attorney Mark Hannigan, Commissioner Hall, I mean, if you want to beef up condition of approval number 24 with additional enforcement language, I can suggest language to planner Ananth.
Okay.
Because I think the public comment has raised the issue of enforceability as it relates to a single lot deed restriction. And so we've dealt with those in the past and added, you have added as a commission additional requirements such as express a secondary agreement, which gives the city even increased enforceability authority to approve any change, third-party beneficiary status, anything that could further institute our enforcement capability beyond just the plat.
Okay. And then I guess corollary to that would be talking about the commercial uses, because it is mentioned that in addition to no nightly uses, there would be no commercial uses. So maybe we could elaborate a little bit more on how you envision that for condition number 24.
I think like the city solicitor said, city attorney said, we can add additional language to prohibit group homes if that is legal. And we can do that in between the planning commission and the city council.
Okay.
Or tonight on the floor.
I'd like to let the applicant speak to the last question that was asked by, I believe it was Phil. Why don't you join the HOA?
The response.
And also speak to the last issue of how you would enforce this.
So hearing the one comment we've heard a lot of is the enforceability of the nightly rental restriction. So in front of you is a proposed deed restriction in favor of the Hidden Meadows Homeowners Association. The draft deed restriction does not just limit it to 12-month rentals. It basically prohibits transient occupancy with a fairly broad spectrum of definitions of what constitutes the transient occupancy, because transient occupancy would deal with a corporation that rented it for a year and basically just populated it with different groups every weekend. That's clearly transient occupancy. I'm the president of an HOA elsewhere in town, and our CC&Rs also prohibit transient occupancy, and we've been successful in using that mechanism to stop it. So by making this deed restriction in favor of the HOA, instead of the HOA having to call up the city and saying, Park City, please go enforce this deed restriction, they're the beneficiary of that deed restriction. They have the ability to take legal action against the property owner. There was a comment made that the deed restriction can be changed on a whim. The deed restriction in favor of the HOA cannot be changed once it's recorded, without the HOA's approval. So our intent there was to give the HOA an enforcement mechanism on the nightly rental issue. We're not interested in joining the HOA and having them dictate size of house architectural guidelines, given the hostile reception we've received from this HOA. I've been communicating to this community. I don't get comments back and suggestions for change other than that we take 33 acres of private land and make it all public. The 33 acres of land, the current and prior owners have permitted the neighbors to recreate on it over the years. That doesn't make it public land. It has always been private land. We're not the type of property owner that would fence it, but it's within our legal rights to fence the 33 acres. We're not that type of an organization. The main trail, the Foxtail Trail that loops around the knoll, is completely untouched by this application. Yes, the shortcut trail is eliminated. That shortcut trail, in order to fit within the postage stamp left, we had to put a house there. So there's comments. Well, sorry, I'm going on.
Yeah, that's fine. I'd prefer if we just stuck to answering the questions. I understand you wanting to go through and explain more, but in the interest of time, I think let's go through any other questions from commissioners and see if you can address those.
Thank you.
Can I ask Alex to pull up the exhibits on the Declaration of Restrictive Covenant? And maybe while you're pulling those up, somebody else has a question.
I guess I have a request for number 22. To me, it seems inherent that the easement would be recorded before a CO could be issued, but I would have a preference of just reiterating that for the record to say recorded easement.
Any other things from the commissioners? Well, that's. Do you have a specific question on this, Commissioner Kenworthy?
Yeah, I want to see the 9/10 of an acre.
Sorry, I pulled up the one in favor of Hidden Meadows first. Can you see that?
Yeah, I want to actually see where that 9/10 of an acre is in regard to the plat. And then I also want to, you have number 2 up there. Yeah, number 2 states that no significant vegetation shall be removed from the easement except pruning to construct and maintain private pedestrian trails shall be permitted.
So
Private versus public. I'm trying to get my arms around that.
okay, just a minute.
See it there under number 2. 2.2.
Grading shall not be permitted upon the easement area except for private pedestrian trails. So the easement area is this triangle shown in green. So it is part of lot 1. And
We're not seeing it.
You're not sharing.
I thought I was, no?
We have sharing, but it's on the restrictive covenant.
Okay, let me.
There you go.
So it's on this green triangle that is part of the 3.8 acre parcel of lot 1. It is the portion of lot 1 that is within the ROS zone.
Okay, so the private, they can go ahead and just the applicant is the one that can go ahead and grade for private trails on that area?
Yeah, it would have to be, very minimal, but yes,
I know would be no public use on that.
not on lot 1. The public use would be rerouted to be completely in the open space.
Outside of that 3.8 acres.
Mhm.
And the applicant is asking us to have private access on that recreation space that they keep as their private recreation space.
Yes, so anything they do would have to be an allowed use in that ROS zone.
I got it.
So no structures, but they would maintain access.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the commissioners? Any, Commissioner Hall, are you, what are your thoughts on the conditions that you've proposed maybe beefing up?
Yeah, I just had a minor tweak for condition of approval number 22 to simply add the word recorded. before a CO could be issued. And then also for condition number 24, I don't know if that's something that we can just condition with the city attorney approving the specific language to ensure the intent of the commission is satisfied.
To further address the prohibition of commercial uses and more specifically address remedies and enforcement.
Yeah. And then I did have a question for the condition of approval number 23 in terms of the financial responsibility for any relocation of the trail on both lot 1 and parcel A. And I would simply add a semicolon and say something to the effect of as approved by the city trail and open space manager, so that Heinrich has the authority to ensure that it's done consistently with our trail system.
I would agree with your proposed amendments. The other commissioners agree as well.
I agree as well.
I disagree. I find the applicant doesn't have the 3.8 acres of good cause with the recreational open space being used as private, being taken away from the public. I heard the applicant say that he really just doesn't want to conform with the HOA in his response to Phil's question, and he wants to be able to be bigger and different than the rest of the community. And I know it's a very unique situation here where we have an HOA and a long-established HOA, and I just don't find the good cause as the community has gathered repeatedly, and they've given you an open door to join the HOA. I've seen that and I've heard that repeatedly. So I'm going to be voting against the applicant tonight.
Yeah, I'll speak along those lines since Kentworthy is bringing it up. And I do sincerely wish that the applicant would join as part of the HOA. I feel like I have said that at our previous meetings as well. My problem is in terms of processing the application, that it's not a requirement of the LMC to essentially be a good neighbor and to voluntarily join the HOA, as much as I personally would like that.
I would agree that we cannot force an applicant to join an HOA. We can't deny it based on popularity, as much as we do care about the concerns of the neighbors. Our job is to follow the land management code and the laws that dictate how we are to make our decisions. So I don't think we can deny it because of not joining an HOA or because it's not popular. The history, the ownership has no relevance on how we can make our decision by law. We can't deny it because there are trails on it. That's something that's very common throughout town. And nor do we want to start punishing people for doing that, because then everyone's going to start wanting the trails off their properties.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
But we couldn't. And, I feel that from where this began, we have listened to the community, the neighbors, from where this began to where it's at now. And I feel that this is in line with the land management code and in keeping with the neighborhood. No, it's not. It's not what everyone around there would desire, but there are additional restrictions that the applicant is willing to put in place for the rentals and other things that we've discussed here tonight. I know it's not a popular position to take, but again, it's not about what's popular. It's about what's governed by laws of how we are to be making our decisions. So as I see the application, it has been rigorously tested and would comply, especially as conditioned.
Commissioner Phillips, is James Letchford again. As we agreed, you'd open it up for public comments. Is this a good time?
Well, I'm not.
See,
I'll tell you what, because I did say
I'll
that.
take
but
2 minutes, sir.
yeah, I'll give you a couple minutes to respond.
Because the applicant did, again, have the closing comments for this application.
He answered a couple questions from the commissioners, and I cut him off when he went on.
Yes, sir. And also went on to say that he's been communicating with our neighborhood, and that's not true. I mean, I'm the president of the HOA. I've never heard from Mr. Ogilvy until the last time where he said, Mr. Letchford, I'm sorry I left you off. I was too busy communicating with 29 of your neighbors, which is not true. It's not statistically possible. I have 44 homes in the Homeowners Association. 33 of them have never heard from Mr. Ogilvy. So I want to make that very clear. There has been no communication, maybe ones and twosies, but again, he's got my information. I have been very vocal. So I want to set that straight. Okay. We've been, again, just to reiterate what Mr. Johnston's points were, it seems like we're saying, why not? Why not? Instead of saying, why should we do this? We have an entire community here saying, we do not, this is not okay. This started off as a 16,000 square foot, a 20,000 square foot home with a 700-foot driveway with nightly rentals. That's why we come in extreme opposition to this, because it was very clear from the onset that this was going to be a short-term rental play. Okay. I watched this commission. I was on the call 5.5 hours on military duty, trying to stay awake so I can address this issue. And we denied a full-time resident 163 square foot addition to their home because two residents spoke up and said that they didn't want it and said, you probably just need to get a bigger home. I am dumbfounded that we're even considering this right now. It's unbelievable. We're moving trailheads that all of Park City uses. That's the reason why. This started off with extreme variances to what's already residential or recreational use. If we do nothing and deny this, this is still Park City's land for all intents and purposes. And our people can use it for bikes, dogs, hiking. I mean, everything that we use it for right now.
Okay, is that I apologize. We need to get through our meeting, and we do hear your comments.
Just have one question too, sir.
Yes.
For the commissioners at tomorrow's city council meeting will be I'm not sure what the term is, but I understand that some of your duties are done. How does that affect tonight's vote? If this goes to vote, how does that affect it, being that tomorrow some of the commissioners won't even be in office? Or if that's the term.
No, that's a good question. Mark Harrington, Senior City Attorney. These current commissioners continue to serve until the council appoints their replacement. And so if they take action tonight, that's just a recommendation from this body that is forwarded to the city council. So the pending appointments should not affect this item, to answer your question directly.
Chairman Phillips, I apologize. I know you're trying to keep a schedule. I'll make less than 90.
Yeah, you know what, I'm really reluctant, and I apologize, but we really don't have time. And you know, I allowed one person to do that. It's very rare that we do. And I will say that the public has had more time to speak than anyone tonight already. So I really do apologize, but we're going to end up with people that don't get through their application if we don't continue.
All I want to know is, what is the good cause? Not what are the reasons that it's
okay. We've heard that. We've heard that, and I understand.
Okay. I can actually, I feel like there's a few things that I've heard a lot of the public comment, and I know that you've participated in a couple of the meetings that this application has been a part of, but in general, it's not a majority vote based on public comment. Like, public comment does not get to veto and override the LMC or our state law that we are bound to follow. And that's the point of the staff report. I also just wanted to clarify a distinction, like, we are listening. We have read the public comment that was provided, all of it. We are listening to you. I sympathize with you. But just because I sympathize with you and I'm listening to you doesn't mean that we can let personal preferences override the LMC, as much as it's agonizing for me. Like, I'm almost shaking because I really wish the applicant would just join the HOA, but I can't find anything within the LMC that requires that. That's like a frustrating part. And to some of the public comment, we have 2 denials on the agenda tonight. So it's not that we rubber stamp everything. Like, we do deny things. This is just the public process. If it complies with the LMC, that's the process. And then in terms of the good cause, there are 28.9 acres that are going to be dedicated to Park City Municipal. And then condition of approval 13 does provide for the 10-foot trail access easement. Currently, there is an unofficial trail cut. So it's basically a windfall from the community for decades long. And we've seen this many times before. I'm a beneficiary of many windfalls like this, but just because the community has had a windfall for a trail cut doesn't mean that it overrides a personal property right, as much as it's frustrating. Anyway.
All right, commissioners, any further comments? But we do need to wrap this up, I'd say, in the next 5 minutes. So
Again, I just want to go on the record. The general plan gives us the authority to protect primary residents. The general plan certainly would look at this and say, this is a unique situation where we can act. And I understand the LMC, but certainly the pillars of the community are laid out in the general plan, and the general plan is quite specific in what's happening here in Park City, and gives us the authority to go ahead and deny this based upon the good cause and the protection of a primary residence.
I guess I'm going to disagree with that comment, unfortunately, as much as I love the general plan and would love to just have that be the scapegoat for everything. I feel like I really just have to look at the criteria within the LMC specific to this application, as much as I feel like we have also given a significant amount of weight, which I do find within so many of the conditions of approval has been because we have been listening to the public comment, because we are trying our best to make the application, to make the applicant essentially a good neighbor. There's nothing, the applicant is required to give public notice, but they're definitely not required to call or email everyone, as much as that would make this a smoother process. That's the process here, is public notice. So.
Yeah, I agree fully with those comments. And again, it's not easy. And I think Commissioner Hall had stated it very eloquently. As far as, tying this denial to a general plan, it's my recollection that the state's ombudsman has told us directly that we cannot deny a project based off of something from the general plan. We can use it to guide our LMC and to consider on applications. But so anyways, I think our positions have been stated. And unless the commissioners have any further questions to help make them make this decision, I think we need to cast a vote on this.
I guess I haven't spoken, so I'm just gonna real quick, John. I'm sorry to do this all the time at the end.
Oh, you're fine.
Mr. Ogilvy, what is, I guess, can you summarize for all the surrounding community members, what really is the differentiating point in the CCNRs? Because I'll start by, I'm looking at Exhibit B and Lot 26, which isn't part of it, but Lot 26 is essentially, would be contemplated as this lot. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it looks like you're within the parameters that were laid out and contemplated in that agreement as a 10.
I think what we're proposing is actually, other than tying into the current architectural guidelines, which are of the Hidden Meadows HOA, we're imposing all the same restrictions that were contemplated in the original plat. We're imposing a nightly rental restriction that is more prohibitive than on any single home in Hidden Meadows today. There have been comments that the houses in Hidden Meadows today are 6,000 or 7,000 square feet. Any of the houses designated on the plat as entitled to 10,000 square feet could come into the building department tomorrow with a request to expand to 10,000 square feet. So Mr. Johnson said, please come back with something consistent with the original entitlements. This project was entitled in 1995, which is years before any of the people speaking tonight bought their property. It was entitled for one single family home of 10,000 square feet with 16,000 square feet of limit of disturbance. We're proposing to conform with that. We've pulled it close to the cul-de-sac, which is the limited area available to us, given the other restrictions on the property. So,
okay. Again, Mr. Ogilvy, trying to keep it tight. Answer the question. Commissioner Johnson, did that answer your question? And do you have further questions?
No, I don't have further questions. From what I'm looking at, I feel like we're a little bit, we can't pigeon on the general plan here. I think it's within the code. And although I don't like this whole thing, I think that the staff report is spot on, unfortunately, for the surrounding residents.
Okay. Anything else, commissioners, before I ask for a motion? Okay. Can somebody make a motion, please?
Do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just I echo completely what Commissioner Hall and Chair Phillips and Commissioner Johnson said. As much as I don't like this, I think that we deal with this all over Park City, where space that is privately owned becomes open space because it's of use. And while I don't like that that's the way we have to go, I agree that we do need to move forward with it.
Okay, can somebody please make a motion?
Chair Phillips.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to be,
I move to make a positive recommendation for City Council's consideration on July 21st, 2022 for the Foxtail subdivision based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval in the draft ordinance as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Was that Commissioner Van Dyne? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Johnson and a second by Commissioner Van Dyne. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Keep this thing moving along. Let's move into the next agenda item. I had a break scheduled, but I don't think we have time for that. So let's move to the next item on the agenda, which is the conditional use permit for ski lift relocation.
No, I know. It's like, I don't want to. But
All right. Who do we we have presenting here?
This is Planner Letterer.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to try and go through this pretty quick. Okay, good evening, commissioners. Today we are looking at parcel number PCA-900-4, or the Deer Valley Burns Lift. This is PL 22-05237, and it's a conditional use permit. This property, again, is located at PCA 900-4 in the Recreation and Open Space Zone and Sensitive Lands Overlay. The applicant proposes to construct, move, and reconstruct the Burns ski lift and relocate and regrade the Lower Little Stick ski run. This hearing will include Planning Commission review and possible final action. A little background here. The Flagstaff Development Agreement outlines future review processes for Deer Valley ski lifts consistent with the Deer Valley Ski Area Master Plan. Staff received an ACUP, or an administrative CUP, application for the Snowflake lift, determined that the lift was outlined in the DA and subject to administrative review, and approved the ACUP on May 19th. Staff found that the Burns lift was not outlined in the DA and therefore required a separate conditional use permit with Planning Commission review. So tonight we will only be reviewing the Burns lift. The current Burns lift is a fixed grip double chair. It is 909 feet long. It has a person per hour carrying a capacity of 950. The proposed Burns lift will become a detachable quad chair, be 1,070 feet long, and have a PPH of 1,800. To describe what's going on here, again, I'm going to set up some background. On the right, we see the current Snowflake lift at a capacity of 950 people per hour. This again has been approved and extended to 1,000 people per hour, which was the original location of the Snowflake lift. The current Burns lift on the other side, which runs practically parallel to the Snowflake lift, also has a capacity of 950 people per hour, leaving this beginner base area or beginner pod capacity at approximately 2,000 people per hour. This proposed removal and move of the Burns lift will move it over here, almost double the people per hour, and only extend it of a few hundred feet or so. Additionally, this ski run on the side will be approximately 2/3 new, with the bottom portion remaining intact. The applicant has explained that this beginner pod capacity is not going to be increased due to this change. Because this Snowflake lift now reaches the bottom, there's no other way to get up to this Burns lift, and effectively this Snowflake lift meters the Burns lift and will keep that at 1,000 people per hour. This proposal meets the requirements for the Recreation Open Space Zoning District outlined in the LMC, wherein passenger tramway stations and ski lift uses require a conditional use permit. The zone setbacks are 25 feet, and the new lift terminals and towers will be at least 500 feet from existing dwellings. Maximum zone height is 28 feet. The new lift terminals will be 25 feet, and the new towers will range from approximately 30 feet to 41.5 feet. And again, per the LMC, the planning director determined the lift towers may exceed the maximum zone height. This proposal also meets the requirements for the sensitive lands overlay outlined in the LMC. Per the LMC, development is not allowed on very steep slopes for which the new lift is proposed to be built upon. But the Planning Commission may review the following and approve the construction if the proposal does not intrude on ridge lines, the proposal does not create excessive cuts into the slope, the limit of disturbance is limited to the scope of the project, and adjacent affected areas are mitigated through vegetation, no additional erosion hazard is created. The proposal results in more organized units, which is not applicable, nor a reduction in density, which is not applicable for this. And additional disturbance is not allowed beyond the proposed project area. Staff finds the proposal compliant with these requirements in accordance with additional compliance within the SLO, as I'll explain in a little bit. Again, this meets requirements for SLO, wherein it complies with steep slopes construction, With ridgeline areas and entry corridors vantage points, the lift is visible from Snow Park Lodge. It's right there at the base, but not on ridgelines. For the vegetative cover, impacted areas will be revegetated, which is conditioned. No wetlands are within the proposal area, and there is a stream nearby, but the proposal will not affect that. Additionally, the revegetated areas shall comply with the Wildlife Urban Interface Code. And the new lift will not create a significantly larger impact on habitat areas. And this is, again, as an exhibit in the staff report. The proposal also meets the requirements for conditional use permits outlined in LMC. I'm not going to go through all of these, but a couple to hit on dealing with traffic, off-street parking. As that beginner base portal area is not increasing capacity of people, there is not going to be an increase of traffic or a need for additional off-street parking. Again, going off with this is additional conditional use requirements that are compliant. The proposal also meets the requirements for passenger tramways and ski base facilities per LMC. Again, highlighting parking and traffic, and it's compliant with additional criteria. Additionally, the Development Review Committee, Planning, Building, and Engineering reviewed this application and no significant issues were raised. And on June 8th, staff published notice to the city website, City Hall, the property, the park record, and mailed courtesy notice to property owners within 300 feet. And staff did not receive any public input prior to the publication of the staff report. The Planning Commission may therefore approve the CUP. The Planning Commission may deny the CUP and direct staff to make findings for the denial, or the Planning Commission may request additional information and continue discussion to a date certain. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission review the proposed plan to move and reconstruct the Burns ski lift and regrade the Lower Little Stick ski run, conduct a public hearing, and consider approving the conditional use permit based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval outlined in the draft final action letter. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So I see we have an applicant here. I'd like to welcome and congratulate Hannah Tyler for her new position and be the first to welcome you here in that capacity. Does the applicant have anything to add?
Yes, we do, Chair Phillips. We good to go ahead with that now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, planner letterer, excuse me, and thank you, commissioners. I will try to keep this concise because I know you guys are running late. I'm hoping to be able to share my screen to be able to walk through some of our overheads and provide a little bit more nuance. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so the impetus of this whole project is the beginner experience at Deer Valley. The current Burns chair is original to the resort, so 1981, and it's just aging out. So when we looked at that beginner terrain, we have Burns on what I would call lookers left. I'm assuming you guys are all pretty familiar with Deer Valley too. So skiers right, lookers left. So Burns on lookers left, Snowflake on lookers right. You have to ride Burns to get to Snowflake. We shortened Snowflake in 2011 to accommodate the carpets. As Burns aged out, we thought to ourselves, does it have to be this way? Does our beginner terrain need to be this way? Is this what the grade should be? Is this where the carpet should be? And we decided that moving the carpets to lookers left, where Burns currently is, opening up the center of Wide West and extending Snowflake was the best use of that terrain. It just is a better experience for our beginner skiers. Ski school is obviously a huge component of our business. And as part of that plan, we thought about how Carpenter is one of our busiest lifts. And then we thought about how Mountaineer, the Mountaineer pod over on the Little Baldy lift, is one of our least visited lifts. So the Burns Express lift is part of this beginner improvement, is a jumper lift, which gets you to the ridge above St. Regis, which is called out in this overhead. And then you're able to ski down to the bottom of Mountaineer, ride Mountaineer to the top, and then take Deer Hollow. So Deer Hollow is a green trail. It is an amazing beginner experience, wide, low grade. Right now, the ski school progression goes from Wide West to Ontario. If you guys are familiar with Deer Valley, Ontario is an arterial run that runs from the top of Flagstaff back towards Silver Lake. It's not only beginners, it's experts, intermediates, everybody that has to see that trail. Not ideal for our beginners. So we thought that moving beginners to underutilized area of the mountain, which is even better terrain than Ontario, was a great concept. So that is really why we're here today. Another thing I want to point out is that the new Burns Express is a high-speed quad, and it is going to be, if approved, the first auto restraint bar in North America. So what that means is that you don't have a choice whether the restraint bar comes down. So you sit down at the lift, it is detachable, so the speed slows down immensely, great for beginners. As you're leaving the terminal, that bar comes down automatically. You have no choice. It's huge in Europe. It's actually mandated in most of Europe, I believe. And then as you ride the lift, which is again, only 1,000 feet, as you're coming into the top terminal, it will raise itself for you. And what we've seen and what the industry has seen is that the majority of people lift that restraint bar way too early. And what are the highest towers on the line typically? The last two. So it's going to be a much safer experience for our beginner skiers as well. And then the regrading of the little stick run, if PDF will work for me. So here we are here. Can you guys see my cursor as well? So this is current mid little stick. And then you take a left and you're on current lower little stick. So that run will be abandoned. We will fold that in as much as possible. We will revegetate it as much as, well, we will revegetate it, potentially even plant some trees. There is a city water line on that trail. So we're, confined a little bit to what we can do there. So that gets abandoned. And then right now, this intersection where you have to take a left onto current lower little stick, Deer Hollow's coming from above, and then Nat's Eye is coming from Skier's right, is really a bit of a dangerous confluence. So another benefit of this project is that this confluence gets moved further downhill. So you can see the new entrance to Lower Little Stick is where my cursor is now, further downhill of the Nat's Eye intersection and Deer Hollow with a better sight line. They come into here. This is where the top terminal of the new Burns Express will be. And then they're able to turn down the new Lower Little Stick. And this is going to be at a lower grade. It's going to be about 10%, which is better for beginner skiers. Current Lower Little Stick, fairly steep for a green and fairly narrow. So we're going to be able to widen this and lower the grade. And then there's also going to be the option to circulate out via where my cursor is now and head down Deer Hollow. And that's where the majority of these folks are going to be going, to Mountaineer. And then they're able to lap Mountaineer. And then one other thing I want to point out before we move on is that this is going to be great for the beginner experience. It's also going to be great for our entire guest experience, because right now, anybody in ski school that isn't going to be starting their day out at Wide West, where do they have to go? Carpenter. Where is everybody else trying to start their day? Carpenter. That is our busiest lift. So this will take the load off of Carpenter, especially during that 9 a.m. to 11 period where we see the most visitation, because people, especially ski school, will be able to get to Mountaineer, underutilized terrain. You've also got the blues like Fairview, Silver Hill. People are able to utilize that terrain. Then they can come back over to Carpenter, get up to the upper mountain. Stop. Okay.
Okay. Does that conclude what you wanted to add?
I believe so.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not trying to cut you short or anything.
Happy to answer any questions, but trying to keep it concise for you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, with that, I'll turn to the commissioners for initial questions.
I have a few questions. First, how wide do you anticipate Lower Little Stick being now?
Current Lower Little Stick?
No, the regrade.
The regrade will be approximately 30 feet wide.
Okay.
And it is currently 24 feet wide.
Okay. And then snowmaking?
There will be snowmaking.
built in?
Yes.
Okay. How much more snowmaking compared to what's currently on Lower Little Stick?
There are hydrants on Lower Little Stick already, so those will get abandoned, or the portion of Lower Little Stick that is being abandoned will be abandoned. We'll actually be able to move some of those above ground hydrants to the new Lower Little Stick, but the in-ground pipe will just have to be abandoned. And then it'll be, you know, the same amount of hydrants on new Lower Little Stick. Typically those are spaced about 150 feet apart.
Okay. I think that's all I have for right now. I do think this improves the skier experience, especially. I've had kids skiing at Deer Valley for years, so getting them out of the base area would be nice. And using Mountaineer and all of that terrain is a really good option to kind of spread people out in the morning.
Is this also envisioned as like a secondary benefit to relocate people from Snow Park who are skiing over there to get to the Jordanelle side for parking?
It is, the impetus
I mean, you
is
still have to take
definitely,
Mountaineer up, but
yeah, the impetus is definitely not that, but those folks that start their day at Snow Park, they're going to find this as a benefit because, you know, that new Burns Express will be there that can help them circulate throughout their day. Does that answer?
I guess more in terms of if somebody is enjoying the Snow Park area and they're trying to get to their car at the Jordanelle side, I feel like that's become much more popular. People are parking over there. Is this like facilitating an exit as well?
Yeah, I mean,
and the
because
diversion of traffic.
if you're skiing the lower mountain now and then you look at your watch and it's 3:30 or whatever and you need to get over there, you have to take Carpenter, then Little Stick to get over there. So now you could take Snowflake to Burns Express to get over there, or you could ski down to Burns Express and take that over.
So can you speak to the capacity? The portal capacity in the report says it's going to remain the same.
Yes. So right now, current Burns, 950 people per hour. Current Snowflake, 950 people per hour. To get to Snowflake, you have to ride Burns.
Right.
With Snowflake extended, it becomes 1,000 people per hour. To get to Burns Express, you have to ride Snowflake. So that's 1,000 people per hour. This is limited to this beginner pod. You can't get to the upper mountain. It isn't increasing uphill capacity because all it is extending a fixed grip double to get to a detachable quad that you have to then ski from the top of Burns Express to another quad to get to any appreciable downhill skiing.
I got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay, any other questions?
Do the movement of the carpets, is that part, that's not part of this CUP? Was that part of the ACUP?
So that's not specifically addressed in the land management code. With land management code, conditional use permits are new ski runs, ski lifts, but carpets are not as impactful. And so,
And the report says that the carpets aren't going to reach this.
They will not.
So that will keep the limitations at 1,000. I get it.
Yes.
I got you.
Just so I'm clear, so the skier capacity will not increase at Snow Park, and that therefore the parking ratio will not be affected in any way.
Correct.
Capacity does not increase.
Okay, thank you.
Just for reference, how long is Homestake?
Homestake is almost exactly the same size as the New Burns Express. They're approximately 1,000 feet.
Okay, I'll take this opportunity to open the public hearing. If there's anyone wishing to speak, you can step up to the podium or raise your hand in Zoom.
Good. Steve Moak, thank you. I'll be very brief. We've lived at Black Diamond for 17 years or so. My kids learned to ski out of there. Now my grandkids are learning to ski out of there. I think this plan makes a lot of sense. It's going to just, from a ski industry point of view, really lessen the congestion at the bottom of the hill, give more people ways to move up. Personally, I just think it's better. I've seen this plan before. So we're strongly in favor of it. I'm formally on the board at Black Diamond, and while I can't speak for them, I think they would all be in favor of this as well. I had not heard about the new enhancement to the safety on the lift, but I think that's a big deal because I worry about my grandkid riding up that. So I'm a big proponent of that. So I encourage you to approve this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can't see in person if there's anyone there. So I'll rely on you guys to help me. We do have 2 hands raised in Zoom. So if there's no one there, let's go ahead and promote the first Zoom hand.
Hi, this is Christy. Can you hear me?
Yes, could you state your full name, please?
Yeah, so this is Christy Hind. I'm the executive director of Park City Ski and Snowboard. We're a local winter sport club with about 1,000 athletes, 200 coaches. So we're a big employer in town as well. And we're here tonight also in very strong support of this project. Deer Valley has been an incredible partner to our club for years. They serve on our board to help ensure that we meet the needs of local athletes, and very recently have opened terrain to our alpine athletes. So really on the issue of public served purpose, we feel strongly that this project hits the mark. The beginner experience is what very much we're about, because we're about training local kids. So we view this as a highly desirous project for the beginner experience and for those kids who go on to ski Mountaineer and Silver Hill. The enhanced safety measures, our club is committed. It's a safety first club, and the enhanced safety features like the auto restrained bar, which I also am hearing about, sort of new to me, is really awesome. I mean, that's something that's going to help for anybody who's got kids who ski. It can be a coolness thing to not pull that bar down. And even though all of our coaches and most of our athletes will always do that, there is that thing among kids where it's just not cool to pull the bar down, and that's going to take that out of the way. So I really commend Deer Valley for doing this. I'm grateful to have you as a partner to make sure that we're keeping kids in sport and that we're doing it safely and being mindful of that beginner experience. So I just wanted the commission to know how much we care, the committee to know, how much we care, and how much we're proponents and supporters of this project. I think it'll also help, because it disperses some of that underutilized terrain. So we see this as a big win. We're strong supporters, and we're grateful to Deer Valley for being such good partners. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then another hand in Zoom, Tyler Mugford. Can we, while we're waiting, can we stop the screen share? And unless we need to bring it back up, it just helps open up the screen. Okay, Tyler, if you're here, you have.
Good evening.
Yes.
Good evening. Sorry about that. I started on mute. Tyler Mugford, here at the St. Regis, but also as a parent of 4 kids under 8. Just wanted to take a quick moment to strongly be in favor of this change. Spreading the beginner traffic, I see it both from personally on Ontario, and then from a hotel perspective. I think it's a wonderful adjustment and progressive thinking with the safety in the bar, and will be just continue to elevate Deer Valley as a world-round resort. So I'm strongly in favor of the proposed lift.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any more hands raised. Can someone just confirm there's no one in person?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. and just turn to the commissioners for any further deliberations. Try to keep it.
A lot of time on burns and the carpets. I will happily move to approve this CUP for Deer Valley Resort.
Can you reference the findings of fact?
Oh, sorry. Based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval as outlined in the final draft action letter, Exhibit A.
Second.
Okay, so we have a second by Commissioner Hall, and a motion by Commissioner Hall and a second by Commissioner Van Dyne. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Aye. Sorry. I had a question, but.
So I apologize, Commissioner Johnson. I did mean to see if anyone had any further comments.
No, I'm all set. I'm in favor.
Okay, so you're in favor, and that was my next question is, okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Sticking to our time frame, we cut a couple minutes off on that one, which is nice. Next, we have 405 Woodside Avenue subdivision plat. We have 10 minutes scheduled for this item.
Yeah, in prime time.
Welcome, Planner Colley.
Great, thank you. All right, good evening, Commissioners. Planner Colley here with the application for 405 Woodside Avenue subdivision plat. We are not joined by the applicant this evening. And if there are any questions regarding any of the public comment that was forwarded regarding this application, we can discuss that after the presentation. I'll move through this quickly so that we can move on to the other applications as well. This property is on Woodside Avenue. It is bound on 3 sides by the Treasure Hills subdivision phase 1. This is the existing conditions. There is a historic structure and an accessory structure as well that is allowed within the Historic Recreation 1 zone. There are 2 sheds, one which encroaches the right-of-way. There are additional encroachments that do not have existing easements. This is the front of the property. Here in the center of the screen is the historic structure, and then this is the addition accessory structure on the left. Here is a view of one of the sheds at the rear of the property, and then this is from the very back point of the property. This property is not included on the Park City survey. As you can see, it's indicated here in this blue outline. And so in the analysis of this application, staff has found that this proposed subdivision complies with the HR1 zoning district requirements. There are some additional conditions of approval that are standard that require that the applicant or the future property owner complies with the current LMC standards, and that they also go through an HDDR process if they choose to do any renovations or additions to the historic structure. Staff finds good cause for the subdivision because the HR1 zoning district character is retained. As you can see here in this exhibit, this is on a combination of 4 historic Old Town lots, and that is consistent with the use and character of this historic area. Staff finds that there's no public street or right-of-way vacated or amended with this subdivision. There is condition of approval of 7, which requires that the encroachments are removed, the ones into the right of way or the neighboring property to the south, or that an encroachment agreement is made with those property owners and with the city and recorded with the county prior to recordation of the plat. And finally, no easement is vacated or amended. The Development Review Committee met on April 19th and reviewed the proposal and did not identify any issues. So we are asking the Planning Commission to review the 405 Woodside Avenue subdivision, hold a public hearing, and consider forwarding a positive recommendation for the City Council's consideration on July 21st, 2022, based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval. And that's all I have.
Okay. Just one question for me. I know the answer, but I just want to hear it. Does this subdivision create any further non-compliance as far as any?
No, it would not create any further non-compliance.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question. Commissioners?
It's extremely minor. I was just curious. I assume that in saying this, any remodel or additions of this historic structure shall comply with the LMC, including the historic significant, because this is a historic significant site.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's included in there. I don't know if we want to be redundant and just add a little portion about the historic review board. I don't know,
Okay.
more JK's thing. It's implied, but we can be explicit.
Yeah, we can be
So we
explicit.
can just add a tiny little sentence that, or half a paragraph, half a
Great.
sentence. That was my only thing. Otherwise, I'm happy to move for a positive recommendation.
Do you
What?
do you want to clarify the back and forth from the property owner for us?
Sure. As you know, yesterday we received a hand-delivered letter from the property owner stating that they did not agree with the fact that they were the applicant and that they felt it was misleading, that they felt that there may have been somebody else that was the applicant. They stopped by the planning counter today, and we discussed that as the property owner, they are considered the applicant. They did sign this affirmation of sufficient interest, and so they understand that clarification. There is some confusion in that they are looking to sell the property, and so it possibly could have been a discussion with one of the realtors that they were working with. So they have asked us to move forward with the application.
Okay. Chair, are you guys ready for a motion?
I have to open the public hearing real quick. So why don't I go ahead and open the public hearing if there's anyone wishing to speak on this item. Let's see. Participants. Okay, I see no hands raised.
There's no one in chambers.
Okay, thank you. I will close the public hearing.
Chair Phillips, I move that we forward a positive recommendation for City Council's consideration on July 21st, 2022 for the 405 Woodside Avenue subdivision based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval as outlined in draft ordinance 2022-XX. Does that work?
As amended for condition number 6.
As amended for condition of approval number 6.
Second.
I'm sorry, I did not catch who was the
A
second.
second by Commissioner Hall.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Johnson, second by Commissioner Hall. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, next to our next item, Sampson. Let's see, let me pull that up. (115) Sampson Avenue plat amendment. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Planning Commission, Planner Colley. We are here to discuss the 115 Sampson Avenue plat amendment. I am joined in chambers by the applicant, Christopher Goff. So if there are any specific questions regarding this application, he is available to answer those. So 115 Sampson Avenue is located in the historic residential low zoning district. And you can see here that it is not a, it is an unusual lot configuration, which does play into this application. And I will just point out that it is traditionally was accessed from Norfolk Avenue because that is the front of the property. But because it is bound on three sides by other property owners, the only way to access the property is from Sampson Avenue. Here's a view of the property looking from Sampson Avenue. You can see that it is steep and it does decrease in the topography as it heads toward Norfolk Avenue. And then this is looking up toward the historic structure from Norfolk Avenue up towards Sampson Avenue. Here are the existing conditions. It does, again, has a significant historic site. There are 3 non-historic sheds on the property as well. A staircase for the property owner to access the property from Sampson Avenue. And here is, in this area right here is where there is an easement for a parking pad, and that's from 2015. Part of this request from the applicant is for a petition of the city to vacate right-of-way, but also a dedication of property to the city as well. You can see that this line here that's dotted, that shows the existing, it shows the Utah Avenue right-of-way, which is the original right-of-way in that area. And if we look back at the property line here, that is consistent with that original right-of-way. So the applicant has petitioned the city to vacate a portion of that right-of-way, which is roughly 112 square feet, and will dedicate an equal portion, 112 square feet, to the city. This image is just to further clarify that in 2014, when this was first subdivided, one of the conditions of approval was to dedicate a portion of this to the city, and so that is identified there in red. The yellow is the additional portion that would be dedicated in this process, and then the green is the portion that the applicant has petitioned the city to vacate. So the proposed plat amendment complies with the HRL zoning district requirements. There isn't anything out of the ordinary here other than the unusual lot configuration. And so that does play into requiring the applicant to record the setbacks on the new plat as for when it's recorded. So the setbacks for unusual lot configurations are determined by the planning director. The planning director determined that there are 4 5-foot side setbacks, 3 15-foot front setbacks, and 1 15-foot rear setback. Because within, let me go back, just one moment. The minimum lot width must be 35 feet measured from the front property line. And because the front property line is toward Norfolk Avenue, it's only 25 feet wide. And part of this determination, the land management code allows the planning director to determine the lot width measurement on these unusual lot configurations. So the front lot line is actually measured 56 feet back from that 25-foot front lot line, giving it a 73 foot wide front width.
Can I ask a quick question, right? Since you're on that slide and I don't want to refer to it later.
Sure.
Why is it that we're calling Norfolk the front when we're saying access is from Sampson?
So Norfolk is how it was traditionally accessed. And so because the structure faces Norfolk, if the applicant wants to make any changes to the structure, they will have to make those as the structures had been historically situated. So Any additions that they make to the historic structure will be to the rear of the structure. And that is why Sampson Avenue is considered the rear lot line. And then the front lot line is measured from Norfolk Avenue.
Okay. Thank you.
And this part of the analysis is that is part of the vacation, the petition to vacate the right of way. So the city may find good cause for the petition to vacate a public right of way if the proposal does not increase density, is compatible with the neighborhood, and the utility of the existing right of way is no longer significant. And this is found in City Resolution number 8-98. And I won't go into the details of these unless there are other questions, because this was detailed in the staff report. But the important thing to understand here is that in this image here, you can see the Utah right-of-way, which in section 21, after section 21, as it enters into section 16, changed quite a bit. And then as the subdivisions in section 16 were created, a narrower Sampson Avenue is what resulted. And so the right-of-way vacation and dedication does not conflict with the adjacent residents' rights or cross the Utah Avenue center line. And this image here, you can see where Sampson Avenue is currently and where the original Utah Avenue right-of-way had been platted. And so here we see the vacation parcel and the center line of Utah Avenue. So staff finds good cause for this plat amendment because the proposal is consistent with the zoning district. It preserves present land uses and the character of the HRL zoning district. It also encourages construction of historically compatible structures that contribute to the character of the historic district. There is no public street or right-of-way vacated or amended. The petition to vacate does not increase the density or decrease the width of Sampson Avenue or impact the utility of the right-of-way. The intent of the plat amendment is to memorialize the vacation and dedication of right-of-way. No easement is vacated or amended. I mentioned the easement from 2015, and the applicant has indicated that they do not intend to vacate or amend this encroachment permit. And then finally, the Development Review Committee met on March 1st, 2022, reviewed the proposal and did not identify any issues. And staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the 115 Sampson Avenue subdivision first amended plat, hold a public hearing, and consider forwarding a positive recommendation for City Council's consideration on July 21st, 2022, based on findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners?
No questions.
No questions. That was a good presentation.
Yeah.
No questions.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Yeah, it looks pretty straightforward, and it all makes complete sense. So I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing if there's anyone wishing to speak on this item. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
There's no one in chambers too that wishes to speak.
Thank you. All right, I'll close the public hearing and turn to the commissioners for a motion.
I move that we consider forwarding a positive recommendation for City Council's consideration on July 21st, 2022 on 11-5 Sampson Avenue subdivision, first amended, based on the findings of facts, conclusion of law, and conditions of approval as outlined in the draft ordinance.
A second by Commissioner Hall.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Kenworthy and a second by Commissioner Hall. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And we gained a few minutes on that one, so that's nice. Thank you, Planner Colley, for that. I know we have one more quick one. Let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll take a 5-minute break before we get to the last two items.
Good evening, Planning Commission, Planner Colley. Here to discuss the 949 Empire Avenue plat amendment application. I don't know if the applicant is online. Okay, doesn't appear that the applicant is online, may join us in a few minutes. Okay, so the 949 Empire Avenue plat amendment is similar to a plat amendment that happened at 953 Empire Avenue. You can see that it is a reflection. Here in blue is the current application, and over here it is almost a direct reflection of that application, of that previous plat amendment.
We did that previous one recently, right? Or when was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. Sorry, I don't have the dates up right now. Here are the existing conditions. There is no structure on the site. That was demolished, I believe, in 2013. There are, however, there is this double garage that sits at the front of the property. The garage on the left is actually on the parcel, or excuse me, it is on the property. It does, however, encroach onto the neighboring property by about 4 feet. And you may remember the last time that this application was before you was continued because the applicant was needed to work with the neighbor to resolve issues with demolishing the garage, which is a condition of approval. Here is the property looking from the rear. There are a set of steps that are for the use of the, I will just jump to that so we can get, so we have Empire Avenue and we have Lowell Avenue, and I've color coded so that you can see that there are single family homes up here on Lowell Avenue, and they have parking down here on Empire Avenue. And there is a staircase that goes between these two properties, between 953 Empire and 949 Empire for the use of these property owners so that they can access the parking and their homes. Here's just another visual to show the ownership on Empire Avenue and which property owns which parking spot. So the proposed plat amendment complies with the HR1 zoning district requirements. Again, this is also an unusual lot configuration. The planning director made determinations on those setbacks. Included with those setbacks are conditions of approval 7, 9, 10, and 11. The majority of those are to require the applicant to address these encroachments that currently exist, and also to resolve the issue of the double garage and the demolishing of the garage and the portion that does exist on the neighboring property. Staff finds good cause for removing the lot line because the present land uses and character of the zoning district are retained. No public street or right of way is vacated or amended, and no easement is vacated or amended. The Development Review Committee met on March 1st, 2022 and reviewed the proposal and did not identify any issues. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission review the 949 Empire Avenue plat amendment, hold a public hearing, and consider forwarding a positive recommendation for the City Council's consideration on July 21st, 2022, based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval. And that's all I have.
Sorry, can you pull up the slide that that has all the different parcels? So condition number 5 is that the portion of the garage is going to be removed from SA 301B, but then condition number, sorry, it was just like, and then condition number 9 is that they're going to get permission and approval from owner from 301E for the encroachment.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just wanted to
So, and I glossed over that. The owner, the property owner of SA 301E, they will retain the other portion of the garage,
Okay.
and part of the rear part of the garage actually encroaches onto the property,
Okay.
onto the SA 301B. So they have a couple of different issues that they have to resolve.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good times. It's such a mess, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're dedicating time to sorting it out. I have no further questions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing on this item. If there's anyone wishing to speak, you can raise your hand or step up to the podium. Okay, I'm seeing no hands online. And
No one in chambers has risen to speak.
okay, thank you again. Close public hearing. And I'll just turn to the commissioners for any other questions, comments, and if none, a motion.
Chair Phillips, I move we forward a positive recommendation for City Council's consideration on July 21st, 2022 for 949 Empire Avenue plat amendment based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval as outlined in the draft ordinance.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Van Dyne, a second by Commissioner Kenworthy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
And we are doing good. All right, let's reward ourselves with a 5-minute stretch our legs break, and then we will reconvene. Okay, looks like we have everyone here with us. So we will resume the meeting. Next, we've got the appeal of the administrative conditional use permit, final action letter.
Sorry, Chair Phillips, this is Commissioner Van Dyne. I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. So a couple of things before we get started. We did receive edits to the final action letter from the appellants. I do have those printed out, but they are upstairs. So planner Noth is going to go grab them. But they were also emailed to you if you'd like to have that pulled up. I know Commissioner Susser said that in an email she agreed with most of the edits except for one thing that she sent in. So I do have that typed up so we can talk about that. I think aside from that, we need to decide if everybody agrees with the appellant's edits to add those in or what other changes. And either way, I can pull up a document so we can see the edits that would be changed. So really here for your guidance in what we should change regarding this final action letter. Thank you.
And these edits, these proposed edits were, they have not been publicly available for others to see, correct?
That is correct. Yes, it came in after the staff report was published.
Okay.
The packet.
This is Mark Harrington. The copy was provided to the applicants, however.
Okay. And it will be in the record.
Correct. So it's really, this is really for Commissioner Johnson and Kenworthy to decide whether they agree with Commissioner Susser's proposed edit to the proposed edits of the appellants, or whether you have additional findings that you want to add or subtract from the draft proposed by staff. Because it appears like we have not been successful in getting Commissioner Susser to join us this evening due to her family commitment. Sarah Hall may vote in the affirmative to approve the findings, even though she was in the minority position in voting. So it's kind of like when you vote to ratify minutes, you can rely on the representation of the majority that was present at the other meeting to approve the written record. She's not acquiescing to that record. She's just approving the written record on the assurance of the three majority members.
Okay, and then
her negative vote is still a record on the original vote.
Right, and is three total votes enough, or do I need to also do the same?
Three is sufficient.
Okay.
And Commissioner Van Dyne will abstain because she was not present during either hearing.
Okay, thank you.
So it's really for Commissioner Kenworthy and Johnson to work out which set of findings they want, or whether they want to add or create their own.
Okay. Anything else from staff?
Not currently. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Kenworthy, did you have you had indicated you had a statement from Commissioner Susser? If I heard you right, would you like to lead with that?
Well, I see that this red line looks to be exactly what she forwarded, knowing that she probably wasn't going to be at the meeting today. So
just to step in, she changed one finding of fact number 12 from the email that I received. It's a little different from the copy you received in your hand is from the appellant, and then the email that I received has a little bit of a different language that Commissioner Susser edited. I can pull up both versions of our current version and the appellant's with Susser's comments.
that would help a great deal.
I'm just going to share my whole screen, so hopefully this doesn't get too confusing. So on the left is the final action letter as was published with the packet with no current changes. And on the right is the appellant's edits. And then additionally, right here on finding of fact 12 under this bullet point, Commissioner Suser changed some of the language to read as I wrote in this comment. I just typed it up from the email, which is in blue. Here is the appellant's wording language.
I actually like Commissioner Suser's edit to the proposed appellant's red line. So I prefer to use that, John, but I'm okay with everything else.
I'm trying to see what the
I think she just kind
meaningful
of
difference is.
I think based on like it went from the start of it itself, I think flows better, like contain discrepancies versus
in the vertical
based on
domain.
unexplained discrepancies.
So what are our thoughts here? I think I'm having a bandwidth issue. Can you guys hear me?
I just need a minute.
Okay. Yep. I just making sure my service is getting a little spotty right now.
Yeah, I find them very similar in intent, and I don't really see a major difference unless Lillian could help me out here.
I think Commissioner Suser has just restated what her findings were in the last meeting. So I think you guys just need to come to an agreement on whether to use the language from the appellant or the language from Commissioner Suser.
Okay, I'll go with Commissioner Suser's as well.
Or if you have any additional changes to propose.
I have a question for Attorney Harrington. So God, I hate this thing. Sorry. So the first bullet point versus the last bullet point, is that redundant or I have to use your expertise here? Let's just keep it as is. That's fine. As long as you're okay with it.
Yeah, I think it reflects a specific comment that a couple of the commissioners had regarding figure 4-1 versus just the general conclusion statement of the other one. So they are slightly different, if that was your question.
Yeah, thank you.
So unless there's any more edits to make, I guess at this point, I would turn to the commissioners for a motion.
I would go ahead and accept the.
So you'll move approval of the.
But I want to change the lease for additional parking at Park City High School is available maximum 8 days per, limited to weekends. And I'm not sure holidays, because the 8 days are just what were they defined as? I believe Saturdays and Sundays only.
I'll pull it up so we can double check.
The lease was not to include consecutive weekends. Is that correct? I'm reading this as well.
I see that that's a red line in here, and I'd have to refresh my memory with a copy of the lease. Lillian, do you have that?
Yeah, that's not how I remember it
Yeah.
as well.
One moment.
Here we go.
I don't think it's on this page. Forget to move to the next one.
Yeah, I don't see the consecutive language in there. Do you see it?
No, there's more pages here though.
Be no
There will be no
consecutive.
consecutive weekend use approved. Do you see my
Oh,
mouse?
it is in there. Yeah, well, that's good to point out. And I would also put in there that the number of stalls, the minimum number of stalls available on those days should be defined.
On that same bullet point.
Yes. And just end it with insufficient to properly mitigate.
Sorry, one more time.
And then you can just end it with therefore insufficient to properly mitigate.
So can I just ask a question? As I'm just trying to make sense of that. So not to be used consecutive weekends, that means they can do weekend on, weekend off. Is that what I'm?
That's what the lease says.
And so how would they get even to 8 days?
Holidays, I'm assuming.
Well,
so are we,
Mark, I mean, I think the commission's quoting from one section of lease that's probably conflicted by a different part of the lease, in which the specific days on the front page are listed. And then the form agreement has a standard provision, I think, that says it cannot be used. So I think someone didn't edit that appropriately, and that creates another discrepancy in whether you're calling it out as word for word versus.
Okay.
I don't think you have to resolve it. I think you're just pointing out that the lease says what it says. And
okay. I just want to make sure we're not making the parking problem worse than it already is.
So the lease does look like it's ambiguous at best, with both the units defined as 300 to 600 and the no consecutive weekends still left in there. So I don't know, how do I want to say it, but the lease is, help me out, Sarah. How would you describe that lease?
Do you want that in addition to the change? Do you see the red text I've added on the screen? Do you want that in addition to that language, or is the red sufficient?
I think that's why I just said, let's just leave it, therefore insufficient to properly mitigate. I don't know the exact overflow days and all those things, but clearly this lease isn't clear enough to define mitigation for, the increase in parking and the required mitigation. It's too ambiguous.
And then I guess this may be a question for our city attorney. So I voted to deny the appeal. So I am voting to simply confirm that this is what the contents of the meeting happened and that this is what the majority voted for. And most of where I was coming from was that essentially I didn't find the development agreement defined CCC. So essentially we were just having this fluid formula. Is there a part of it that is my portion a part of this or?
No.
Okay.
No.
So I'm really just saying.
You're just, you're just approving as the form
Okay.
based on Laura's reliance, that assurance that it represents what she found.
Okay. Then I believe this is what happened in the meeting for the majority.
So can I just clarify really quickly? So the changes to be made are the appellant's changes are to be made. We're approving that, except we're replacing the second bullet point under number 12 with Commissioner Seuss's wording. Following the total CCC analysis due to the lift upgrades is inaccurate. Instead of saying it is inaccurate, continue, contains discrepancies in vertical demand between the 1998 mountain upgrade plan and the proposed CCC tables submitted by the applicant. Discrepancies also exist in the CCC analysis and appropriate vertical demand calibration for the Eagle Lift, Silverload, and King Kong between SE Group, the applicant's consultant, and EcoSign Park City Municipal's consultant. Therefore, the total operating CCC of 12,860 nor 13,130 claimed in the alternative by the applicant have not been verified. As a result, it is not possible to accurately assess the required parking and other mitigation measures. And then we are also adding one sentence to bullet 3 under number 12 that says the number of stalls to be used was not defined and therefore is insufficient to properly mitigate. Any additional changes?
Okay, any further edits, commissioners, or are we in a place to make a motion?
So I guess maybe I would say just for conclusions of law for number 1. So the planning director erred in determining that the ACUP complies with criteria 1 and 6 of the GA. I agree with that statement. And so we say accordingly, the planning director lacked administrative review to process the ACUP. And that is why the appeal is being granted. Because the criteria number 1 and 6 were not met. Like it doesn't have anything to do with the CCC at that point for number 2.
Sorry, hold on. Just let me pull up the original because I think there's language to that effect somewhere else. If you're going to add that, I would add it in the order and it's a second sentence.
Yeah, it was more just continuing the thought process.
Right.
If we didn't meet criteria 1 and 6.
No, but
then
it's,
we have
I
the-
think that's encompassed in that the appeal is granted in the order and then it finds that they can still apply for their full CUP.
Correct.
If you want to put before that, I don't think it's necessary, but if you want to be clear,
No.
you can add it.
Oh, good. I think this is what happened in the meeting, so.
Yeah, on number 12, the one thing, Bill, that I'm thinking about is where Commissioner Ceaser says, therefore, the total operating CCC of 1286 north 13,130 claimed to be the alternative by. I think we need to clarify that the total operating CCC remains undefined.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, we never got there.
Right.
So-
So I don't want to just limit it to what Commissioner Ceaser is saying there. I think therefore the total operating CCC presented on either 1286 north 13,130 claimed by alternative.
You can just add and has not been defined after verified.
Has not been verified and
Has not been defined and therefore it's not
has
been
not been
defined.
verified and or defined.
Correct.
I like that. Thank you.
Yeah, I like that too.
Thank you.
Change that.
As a result, it is not possible to accurately assess the required parking and other mitigation measures. Fine with me.
Yes. Do you want me to read it to you to be clear? Okay.
You want me to go again? Okay. Okay. I motion that we approve the Park City Mountain Resort Administrative Conditional Use Permit to
Just
to
approve
deny
the
appeal, to grant the appeal on the administrative conditional use permit to upgrade 2 ski lifts, Overload and Eagle in the recreation and open space zoning district and sensitive land overlay. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Or do we need to approve the final action letter?
No, I think if you just reference the final action letter as amended.
I move that we appeal the final approve, not appeal.
We don't need another appeal.
Okay, the planning commission final action letter as amended.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Kenworthy and a second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And I assume, I didn't hear Bill and John say aye, but I'll assume they're ayes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, motion passes.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, now on to our final item, and looks like we'll be finishing right on time, hopefully. So next item is 543 Park Avenue. Final action letter as well. Welcome, Planner Seabright.
Yeah, good evening, commissioners and members of the public. So as a reminder, I will be presenting for 543 Park Avenue, Washington School Inn. I have just a couple of slides summarizing where we're at and what is before you tonight. So as a reminder, we've done 2 work sessions, 2 public hearings, and on the last public hearing, the commission directed staff to draft findings for denial for the conditional use permit for a minor hotel. After that meeting, we have received 1 additional public comment by the representative of the neighbors, Nicole DeForge. And this comment has offered, similar to the last item, suggested edits to the draft final action letter. And so I'll briefly go over the suggested edits made by the representative of the neighbors. There were edits to 4 findings of fact, 7, 9, 10, and 12. Some of these are inclusive of references to the conditions associated with the 2010 CUP. And as a reminder, that was the conditional use permit for a private recreation facility, the lap pool behind the hotel. And then there's a reference to the 1983 CUP, which is the bed and breakfast CUP that this minor hotel CUP would have been replacing. And then there's an additional reference to LMC definitions and uses. And so staff has looked over these, and there are some of these edits that are favorable, some of these that we are going to defer to commission on if they would prefer to include or not, and some that might not be worthy of inclusion. So with that, and before I forget, we did include a reference to Exhibit B in the background document. That was included in prior staff report packets. That was not included in tonight's packet, and that was unintentionally included. It was not meant to be included as a reference. And so our recommendation is that the commission review and amend as necessary and approve the draft findings of facts, conclusions of law outlined in the draft final action letter denying the applicant's request for the minor hotel CUP. And I believe the applicant's representative, Wade Budge, is in attendance tonight. And if he would like to speak, after that, I can share some of the suggested edits by the neighbor's representative and we can kind of go through those one by one.
Okay. Is Mr. Budge here? I don't see him anywhere.
I believe I saw him in this room earlier.
Oh. I see a WRB in attendees. Is that?
I sent a, oh.
Was he here earlier?
He was.
Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and start with the commissioners, and if he joins us, we'll give him the opportunity to speak. So, commissioners, what are your thoughts here?
I'm going to defer to Kentworthy and Johnson, since again I was at the lone dissenter, just channeling my inner RBG.
I think most of the edits are referencing that 2010 CUP approval prohibiting the use of Woodside Avenue for guest parking for deliveries, service traffic, with the sole exception of pool service. Is that
Would it be useful for me to walk through the suggested edits at this time?
I think it would be for me, but I don't know about Kenworthy.
Yes,
so.
it would.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that.
We built in plenty of time for you.
Okay. So the first suggested edit is on finding of fact number 7. This is an inclusion of the reference to the 2010 CUP regarding the use and access of Woodside Avenue. This staff has no issue with this edit. The second edit is for finding of fact number 9, and that includes.
Ron, let's go one at a time.
Sure.
Yeah, so I accept that the first edit on 7B.
As do I.
Next.
Okay. So the second on finding of fact number 9 includes the definition of restaurant, which is accurate, and then it expands the statement that the gatherings fall under the definition of restaurant and private events. and then states that restaurants and private events are prohibited in the HR1 zoning district, and then says that outdoor dining and beverage service stations, outdoor storage, and so forth are not allowed uses in the HR1 zoning district. So the first portion of this is correct, and that last portion is correct as well. It's this middle part that states that restaurants and private events are prohibited. And again, the land management code does state that restaurants as an accessory use to a permitted minor hotel are an allowed use if conditionally approved. So I don't know if that's the most accurate statement.
So what are you suggesting? The removal of the word restaurant? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you okay leaving in private events?
Correct. Yeah, that was our original language.
All right. I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Okay. So the next suggested edits are for finding of fact 10. And the edits are specific to elaborating on what the applicant's proposed request use is, elaborating on the commission's determination that reasonable conditions could not be proposed to mitigate the anticipated detrimental effects, and then an addition of a reference to the 1983 conditional use permit. Staff has no issues with those suggested edits in that first paragraph. In point B, it's not technically incorrect. That is correct, but as mentioned, the purpose of the proposed CUP was to replace the 1983 CUP. So it's not wrong. It's just additional information. So if commission wants to include that, there's no problem with that, but it is just additional context.
Yeah, the top part, I completely agree. We definitely felt that the reasonable conditions cannot be proposed to mitigate the anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use. I think that's very important to keep in there. And the last one, I don't see why not. It's up to you, Bill.
No, I agree. I guess so for B, the start, we have restaurants and private events, but then we just removed it from above. So
Yeah, that was my
doesn't
comment.
that seems kind of, can you clarify that one?
Yes. Let me double check our original language. If we included that in the original one.
It's the one in the packet yeah.
Oh, yes. That's an oversight as well. We should keep that language consistent, and we'd probably recommend removing restaurants from that.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
Let's remove that, but otherwise I'm good.
And then is that true? Outdoor dining is prohibited in HR1? Like the same thing for restaurants? Like it would be allowed if you met the CUP? This is a question.
Sorry, the question of
Is outdoor dining the same as restaurants? Because is it really a prohibited use in HR1, or is there an exception if you comply, much like restaurant?
Yeah, so there is a difference between restaurant and outdoor dining, and it's specifically the outdoor nature of the dining that is prohibited in HR1.
Okay.
Then let's leave it in.
Yeah, I think this is Mark Harrington. I think we put that in because of Commissioner Sousa's original comments at the end of the last hearing. And I would distinguish the statement here versus the other because it's merely restating what the existing zoning is with your finding in relation to your finding above in number 10.
Right.
As the leap from what is prohibited to what was being proposed as the minor hotel. So I don't necessarily find an inconsistency that you're stating the fact that these things in B are all prohibited, including the restaurant, because it's supporting the conclusion of the leap, that the leap can't be mitigated, as opposed to, I think, an additional inference that the neighbors were trying to get you to add in the first section where you decided not to include it. But I think if Commissioner Suster were here, this may reflect her comment a little, capture the intent a little more. So I know it's hard because she's not here, but
Well, yeah, if the intent is to just codify what was happening,
just
then
says-
let's leave it.
yeah.
'Cause
And I'll go with that. I'll put restaurants back in there. In this section.
Okay.
Bill?
Okay, yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, with that, we go to the last one, finding of fact 12. And again, this is just in reference to the 2010 private recreation facility conditional use permit. And staff doesn't have issue with this addition or these additions.
I'm good with it.
I would suggest this instead of and violate, I would say contrary to, because I think you could, if you're affirmatively amending the prior approval or granting a new approval, I'm not sure it would violate it, but it would be contrary to.
I'll go with that. Be contrary to the 2010 CUP approval.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Who was that avenue? Would be, okay.
That.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else, commissioners? Any changes or additions to make? Sounds like we've got some consensus. And I guess if anybody would like to make a motion.
I move that we approve the planning commission final notice action on 543 Park Avenue. And
as amended.
As amended.
Second.
Thought I had.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Kenworthy and a second by Commissioner Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn 9:29.
Woohoo! We did it.
If I threaten it enough, it happens.
We can do this. See you guys.